The lady said it was recording, right?
She did.
She did. And I consented.
All right. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I'm Brian Snyder, and I'm here with my co-host and wife. I got a little too high. I'm sorry. I really sorry about that. She's the former editor-in-chief of Atlas Obscura, co-founder of Odd Salon in San Francisco, death positive advocate, former funeral counselor, author,
current
advocate.
layabout.
Is there something I didn't mention?
Yeah, Poseyfield. How about the one thing that I'm actually still doing, which is the Poseyfield Pockets thing? And then she worked at Sizzler once, and she was a production assistant at some point. What do you do now? I don't even know. Poseyfield Pockets is a lecture series that is death related and still, mostly on track.
Is this the tone that we're going to have through the rest of this? A little bit of bitterness?
I was just going to say, I used to work at Thank God It's Yogurt. So that was...
I'm still stinging about the whole
We're digging deep. I can go deep. In the CV.
So, okay. So are we all set there, Rachel?
We're good. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you everybody for watching on YouTube and listening on Apple Podcast. I'm excited because you are back. We have lead singer of Evangenitals, experimental theater artist, playwright. I am too high. I am so sorry. I went too far.
You're not going to have to carry this one.
This is a safe place, Brian.
All right. So thank you for coming back, Juli Crockett.
Yay. I'm glad to be back. We're all here. We made it.
Well, yes. And this was a year ago. We were getting through the pandemic, no vaccine yet. And now we're vaxxed up.
Yeah.
And
that would have been super awkward if I was like, not me. Fuck that shit.
I'm not getting that chip in me.
Yes.
I was waiting for that. I gotta be honest. I was like, oh shit, maybe I don't know.
Well, that has been one of the things about the pandemic is we've discovered a lot of things about people that you didn't know before. And it's really been a great revelation of, folks that I realized I didn't know them as well as I thought I did, or I didn't know their political stance or their medical stance, and just watching some people unravel. I feel like, that comedian Dennis Miller, like, you remember what happened to him after 9/11, where he just like lost his mind and went way to the right in conspiracy theories. And he was like this brilliant, articulate, interesting person. And then it's a bitch what, primal fears will do to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is anybody scared right now?
Here?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Or in the world? Well, I mean, I always live with a degree of like total existential angst, but not about anything that's like in the physical universe. Usually it's very abstract. Like most of my primal fears are wildly philosophical ones that are hard to explain to people. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, like in therapy and stuff, when you're trying to describe, string theory or something like that. My concern is that, we're all made out of vibrations. So there's actually not any solid matter. So
I kind of feel like that. My eyesight is like that. It's like, it's always shimmering all the time. So I feel like I'm like, maybe I'm about to see into another dimension. Like it's just, this is the beginning of it.
Ooh. That's true. Like you very much on a physical plane get to exist in a liminal space. So most people through, drugs, meditation, the abstract thinking, philosophy, art, whatever, try to take themselves there, but you are actually like physically on the line.
That was
poetic.
You don't
need LSD. You're already in it.
Yeah.
That's not that fun.
I am drunk.
Neither is LSD after a while. Fun for like
Yeah,
the first
exactly.
2 or 3 hours, and then
Every time I ever took LSD, I swore I would never do it again until
You're like,
somebody
okay,
offered it to me again, in which case I did LSD.
it just lasts too long. It doesn't need to be 8 hours. Like that really just doesn't need to be that long.
I know. I used to have a thing like clockwork. Whenever I would take acid, right around hour 5, I would become convinced that I've permanently lost my mind. This is how I'm going to be forever. And then I would start practicing how am I going to exist in the world after that. So I'd be sitting there like moving my hands, and my friends would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, folding laundry. Just like paying bills, going to the grocery store, gotta work this out, gotta get out there in the world and be like, how do I interface when I'm just crazy? It's terrible. And then I'd come back, you know.
I felt I went there with you right now. I totally felt like I was tripping out for a second.
It's a weird, like, it's a wild like, I don't know if it's, you know, just human or an artist's sensibility or, you know, being an actor, or I just was learning a thing today about mirror neurons, where it's like when you see somebody doing something, or even I would wonder for you, like if you hear something and it's something you've done physically, like your body fires as if you're doing it. Like, so it's like when you see a dancer and they're amazing and your body feels amazing because you're like, oh, I'm experiencing this thing. But I feel like that when I talk about, you know, really acute experiences or drugs, or if it's like the Brechtian traffic accident where you're describing something and then it completely just like reignites in your body. I have that experience often where I can.
That's how I felt when Brian, when you messed up my CBD pills. And I was watching, and as I was watching the little one dance, and I was like, I'm dancing too. I'm dancing with him. He's a genius. This is amazing. Something's wrong.
You're like, I am high.
So what happened is there's a brand that they have CBD and THC pills.
Yes.
And they look exactly the same. Like,
especially if you're sight impaired.
That's bad labeling right there.
Right. And so anyway, it ended up to be it was a super high dosage of THC.
It was a cancer patient level. Like, wow. I'm in remission. I was taking CBD to stay in remission, not like THC to stay out of pain. And that's kind of was the switch. And it took me 3 days before I realized what was happening. But yeah, he basically was roofing me with huge amounts of THC.
Not intentionally.
It was hilarious. It was really funny. I hid under a blanket for like 6 hours while my 6-year-old patted my head. And
no,
it was really, I had to tell Brian's parents because we were and I was like, okay, I need these cookies and I'm going to lock myself in the bathroom and I have to go now. Watch my kid. And I texted him, trying to text him what happened, and every text he's going like, what's happening? I'm like, this is so hard. Please stop asking me questions.
It's tough.
Don't let your blind husband pick up your drugs is the moral of that story.
Yes, that's tough. That's a tough one. I feel like that's a global kind of experience that a lot of people are having now with like the promulgation of recreational cannabis markets. And I was just joking with somebody where it seems like everybody has an edibles overdose story, where everybody has like,
I know it's happening right now.
Too much. And you're like, this is it.
We're in it. Brian's in it right now.
Yeah. So you're going to witness it and record it for all time, or as long as YouTube lasts.
If you want me to bring you a bag of cookies, Brian, just let me know and I'll run out there.
No, I'm not there. I'm just spinning right now.
It's all right.
I remember I went down to LA in 2017 and I went and met my friend Trevor Boyer. I don't know if you know him, but he and his brother have a band called Descanso, and also Dusty Meadows. And
oh, I know Dusty Meadows. Yeah, I know that band.
Yeah. So Trevor's the drummer.
Okay.
And so I went and visited him, and he went and got us some weed, and I wanted a vape pen, and I did it, and I kept pulling on it, and I felt like it wasn't lighting up, and I feel like, what's going on? And I just kept doing it. And after a few minutes, I'm not feeling anything.
Dear.
And then I did it really hard, and it was super hard, and it started, and it just blew my mind. And I start feeling, I'm like, I can't breathe. I can't fucking breathe. I can't. And Trevor's like, dude, you better pull yourself fucking together, man. I'm not taking you to the hospital.
Going to the ER.
They need to like have a whole new, they need to have a dedicated emergency line just for the weed people. Like just for the people.
You're fine.
It's like, I know it feels bad, but you don't need to go to the hospital. It's okay. It's like, here's the steps. It's funny.
I think I need to call 911 right now.
You gotta have some floor rolling first. You gotta wee.
If you need to lay down or something, it's okay.
I was thinking of that Saturday Night Live skit where Dan Aykroyd plays Jimmy Carter, and he's like, he's trying to, I don't know, he took a call from somebody who was overdosing, and he's like telling him how to mellow out, listen to some Allman Brothers. Yes. Do you remember that one?
No.
Oh, okay.
But that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I want to go back.
How is your band? How are the Evangenitals?
We're good. We're good. I mean, we're good. We just started in the last few months, like playing a couple of shows, which was wonderfully fun. I mean, I will say we've been blessed because during the pandemic, we really just didn't have much of a push and out of necessity. Like we didn't have the necessity to go be like a lot of people where we didn't have to play shows, we didn't have to make money, we didn't have to do it because kind of everybody in the band is very polymathic in doing many things. So it was just an easy time to be like, let's focus on something else. So we really took the time just to get together, take a break because we'd been playing a lot, and then we got together and practiced. We wrote a lot of new things. We made a bunch of music videos. We did a couple of wrote songs or did covers for this literary series called Library Girl that was a nice through line that every once in a while they'd ask us to do something, so you'd have the motivation or the reason to be like, okay, let's do a video. And then right in that dip, I guess it was like June or whatever, where things were looking real good for a minute. And somebody asked us to play a show, and we were like, okay. And then it ended up, but from the time we booked it to when we played it, we ended up playing it right on the eve of the new mask mandate. So It was like an indoor, super packed, sweaty, hot as shit, dive bar venue, and everybody was just so excited because there was so many people we hadn't seen for so long, and there was just sweaty hugs and stuff. And then I spent the next 2 weeks being like, am I gonna die? It's like, what just happened? Like, was that the stupidest thing I've ever done? And then we've done a couple of things. We got to go, we played at the Mammoth Film Festival, and that was super fun, and it was the first like real field trip we've gotten to take in a while, and just beautiful. And then now we're just starting, we're gonna do this once a month Sunday service, we're calling it, at this brewery that's out in Monrovia called Wing Walker Brewing, and they have axe throwing, and it's an outdoor, pretty much it's like a parking lot, and they got
axe throwing at the band.
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do for the money. Everybody needs a gimmick.
Those cowboy cages with the chicken wire.
Yeah, it's like the cages, and you get to throw the axes, and they make artisanal pizzas, and they have outdoor seating. So that's been a lot of it. Is looking for places like where we can play outside. We love playing outside anyway. And but generally being safe, just because a couple of, like, I have an unvaccinated kid, our bass player has an unvaccinated kid, they're too young right now to be vaccinated, so we're all pretty safe still, and a little bit edgy. And I think we really like the new pace. I'm gonna say, it's like we just really like, I was just telling somebody the other day, like, I can 100% tell you I'm never going back to the pace of life I was at before the pandemic. I have and I think we talked about this a little bit last night, like it's as if the universe gave me the permission I needed to just be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do this thing. And it's been a really unfortunately for all the pain and suffering and horror that it has brought to many, it's been a really great time for me.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty into it, except for all the dead people.
Was it
Otherwise,
worth it?
fantastic?
How many, Rachel, do you have the numbers?
600,000
Do I have them
right
on
now?
me?
Yeah.
No, it's well over 700
In the US, right?
in the US. Yeah,
So are you
Millions.
okay?
5 million-ish in the world.
Well, I don't know if I said this before, but a friend of mine sent me a screenshot shortly after the pandemic started, because I guess in about January, I started writing postcards to people. And in January, oh yeah, when I did,
All right. Did you guys
pre-pandemic.
look at the same Facebook post or something?
No, I had started it far before the pandemic, just as a desire, like in that very slow, like, I don't want to be on social media anymore. And then I just love writing things. And I had this postcard set, but I only write stream of consciousness postcards to people. So,
Me too.
oh my gosh.
We need to send each other postcards, clearly.
We should, because I did have some people be like, are you on drugs? Like, what is this? And
I had one that was just this big long rambling thing that had no point, and at the end I wrote, I just stole 20 seconds of your life that you'll never get back.
but I had sent my friend one in January prior to the pandemic that was pretty much just this whole thing saying, I just
predicting the pandemic.
Yes, I beckoned the pandemic. I said, I want the world to just pump the brakes. I want everything to stop. I want everybody to stay home. I want us to return to the barter system. It was this whole thing of, just these things. And then somewhere about, I guess, late March or April, she just sent me a photograph of the postcard and was like, what did you do? What did you do? It's
an exclusive, everybody. Juli Crockett is the harbinger. Is that the right word?
Harbinger. Yes.
I even got that being high. That's great.
You see, you're fine.
Suck it up, Snyder. So not to backtrack, but the exact number would be 751,692 as of yesterday in the US.
That sucks.
So Julie got to slow down for 700,000.
Yeah, isn't it great? I did some energy work. I incorporated yoga in my daily routine. It's totally worth it.
Strengthen your core.
It's really only like 1% of the population. So
I know. We forget there's a lot of people.
How far the right and left come together.
Yeah, right. Oh, that was an interesting part of it, was watching that converge into go full circle. Everyone goes so far right, so far left that they crash into each other and became a thing.
It's concerning. It's concerning. I mean, the loss of, nuance and actual debate or discussion and all of it globally is of concern, especially to sensitive artist types it's like, oh boy. It's hard to make a sign that's like, bring back nuance.
There is a gray area.
But I think I'm pretty optimistic. I'm kind of like a pretty naive optimist a lot of times, though. Maybe not. But I do feel, it does feel like it just takes a lot. It just takes a lot for consciousness to shift. But it's interesting. I guess the other thing, here's my other asshole pandemic thing, is I also remember when it started, having a conversation with a friend of mine in those, like, there was that 2-week shutdown where things truly did stop, and LA had the best air ever, and it was like peace on earth, and you could see the carbon footprint evaporate from Earth, and they had all the satellite images of like, look at the sky, it's amazing. And and I told my friend, I was like, I hope this lasts a little while. Like, I hope this lasts a while, just enough. Because there's that thing of like, it takes 90 days to form a new habit, you know, they say. And I was like, I hope it lasts long enough to like rewire some neural pathways, like so people can like get used to a different way of living, and we can get used to the possibility of working from home and not having to drive places. And I certainly did not anticipate years of that. I was going for that, 90-day hurdle maybe, but I do thankfully don't believe in, good, bad, black, white, yes, no binaries. So it does feel like there's a whole lot of more will be revealed about the whole experience and what we're learning about ourselves and others. And I don't think it's an accident that there's, all these companies going on strike and all of these people, want like a return to kind of seeing, hey, the labor movement wasn't so bad.
Every single pandemic causes a cultural shift like this. Like this is just right on track with history.
Yeah.
And it's causing a major one. And that's what we needed, really.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where it shakes out and what power and leadership, looks like and emerges from it. Because it is also, as much as it's great when things start to when there's fissures and there's these opportunities for transformation and change and growth, but then obviously it's like, and then what comes and takes its place is
the walls have to come down first before you're really rebuild, unfortunately.
All I heard was fissures. Because when I think of fissures, I think of anal fissures.
Oh boy. And when you say anal, I think prolapse. So let's just keep going with the word association and see how fucked up this can get.
Prolapse.
I feel like we're here already. I don't, by hour one.
I'd also like to mention that neither of you are wearing pants right now.
Yeah. You got to keep it comfortable.
It was too hot. I'm in the bathroom. It's too hot in here to be wearing pants. You don't wear pants in the bathroom.
Yeah. My fashion has plummeted to just whatever is the most comfortable thing I can possibly imagine, which is awesome because I have no shame around it. So I am absolutely like, will pick up my child from school in my pajamas and just be like, yeah, let's do this. It's comfortable.
I felt like I was the only one when the lockdown, the true lockdown was going on, the 2-week one. I had to work and I was working overtime. So it was spooky, but I was like, how come I'm the only one who doesn't get to stay home? This is bullshit. I still have to dress up and I still for nothing because there's no one's coming in. And, I still had to walk around out there but there's no one else out there. So it was very Silent Hill-ish. 1 minute there. It was creepy, like eerie.
What about the dead bodies? That must have been a little creepy.
Well, we didn't have a lot of deaths until that lockdown was over. So we didn't have any during that time, but we were getting ready. We're doing all the OSHA stuff and trying to get prepared for it and trying to get a hold of PPE and trying to, get all the employees like boned up on their infectious disease stuff. And so there's a lot to do, but we didn't have an influx of bodies until December 2020. And then, that got a little weird. There was a couple moments where, my boss and I just kind of looked at each other and the phone rang again. We're like, I hope that's not them again because we're out of room.
Wow.
Right now. So the owner of the mortuary I worked for at the time, she went through the AIDS epidemic. So this wasn't her first rodeo, but she was like,
viral rodeo.
When she's looking at me like, I hope that's not them again, then I'm worried, because she's never worried about anything. So there was a time when I first started where I was like, ooh, what happens if there's a mass casualty? What do we do if there's a bus crash and there's like too many buses and we don't know? And I was all excited because that's never going to happen.
Right.
And then when the band was out, I was like, whoa, I didn't sign up for shit. I totally did. I did it anyway. Because I asked those questions and crap. Okay.
So it wasn't me. It was you.
It was me. Yeah. No, I set us up for being nosy and wondering, what do we do? We can't stack people? Like, what do we do? I was just curious. I didn't think it was going to happen. And it didn't really to us, but it came close. Like there was one day where if we got one more call from a particular assisted living, we were in trouble. And it was them actually. And I said, oh gosh, do we need to turn our guy around? She said, no, no, they're all done. We don't have any more. So what do you mean? She said, they're all either dead or better. I just wanted to make sure you had this paperwork. I was like, oh, I don't want to say that's good news, but it kind of good news. Like, that's good because we don't have any place to put them. And we owned our own crematory, which is not the case with a lot of mortuaries. So we had other mortuaries who could no longer send them to the big industrial ones because they weren't taking anybody, calling us desperate, like, please, can we use the crematory? How much will you charge us? And yeah, that got it. But that was a 2-month period that it was like that. It was a little crazy. And we're lucky, we're a tiny town, like if it with the mortuaries in the cities, LA, for instance, they had a rough go.
Man, we had a friend who died not of COVID, just of had stroke, and it was one of our former bandmates, the original drummer of our band, and while we were waiting to figure out what happened, they were notifying us, that the coroner was so backed up, it took weeks to get to your spot to figure out even what the cause was, which is just one of those, like, I mean, in your world, probably not so much, but it's one of those like visceral moments that you don't think about of like, oh, right.
Well, I mean, when you understand how the inner workings are, and then you see, it's on a pretty skeleton crew, like the death industry is very tightly, there's not a lot of room for this kind of stuff. So when it happens, it's especially when you know what will happen or what can happen, or, that other people don't think about it all and won't, but I've had to point out several times during, online scuffles with people, like, what happens when there's no one to come to pick up the it's a problem, like it's a big problem, and it's very easy to get there, very easy. And temporary internment and all that stuff that has to be done in those times. So yeah, the coroners were all, because every infectious disease case is a coroner's case, no matter what. So they had to go through every single case, which is overwhelming, because usually they only do, unattended accidents and, suspicious stuff. They don't do just natural hospice type stuff. So, but most of these people are on hospice, or, we're in assisted living. They'd normally not be coroner's cases, but they have to sign off on every single one.
Wow. That's the kind of infrastructure you don't think about a lot. You meaning everyone other than you.
Yeah, we're usually very, very invisible and like it that way and want it to be that way. And it should be, I guess, to some degree, but there is a lot of it, like, we
I'm always fascinated about this. I've always had a hyper developed sense of the macabre. So I wonder, I remember being in high school and I used to always say, like, the problem with America is, like, we've never had war on our soil. Like, that's culturally our issue, is we don't have the, like, bodies in the streets, bloodshed, in our cultural memory of living people, as opposed to out there in other countries who have to deal with, like, the dailiness and the impact of, having bombs dropped on you. And that's something that's really embedded. And so, just in my ludicrous lemonade factory, I can't help but think that for the soul of this country and our cultural consciousness, that having the presence and the weight of death so in our face is good for us in a way, because it actually has both, I think, enlivened. I think that's tied to a lot of these things of people quitting their jobs and changing their life, just being like, fuck this, because it's that, like, the amount of denial that we're usually in, of like, that's not going to happen and I live forever and nothing, or in just the cultural programming of, don't get out of line, just go to work, it takes quite a shakeup for people to go, like, wait, what am I doing?
I think it's causing a lot of the pushback too, because there's so many people, our death industry is so sterile, and it happens in the hospital. It doesn't happen at home anymore. Half people haven't seen anyone. Most people, I think, haven't seen someone die before. And, people don't choose to view as much as they used to and all that. So it's not real to them. So when you say, 700,000 people died, they're like, whatever, that's only 1% of the population. Well, if I drop 700,000 people on your doorstep, you'd get it, or 70 or 2. 2 people. So anyone who's, actually had, experienced and been around a lot of it is like, ugh. But, if you've only seen it on TV, there's such a big disconnect that just doesn't seem like real life to them.
How's this conversation going for your buzz, Brian?
Yeah, we're bringing you down.
I was just
Brian.
thinking about dead bodies on a doorstep, and I was like, well, 2 is just, that's two dead bodies, but you got 3, you got a pile.
Yeah. Well, no, you can't stack them up. Yeah, that's not ethical. You got to kind of lay them out. So it depends on how big the porch is, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of my questions, what's the ethical way to do that? And it was what they had to do in New York, the temporary internment. That's the first modus operandi is to temporarily inter people, then pick them back up later when there's a time for it. That's unpleasant.
Wild.
Yeah, you don't want to have to do that, but is exactly what they're doing in LA, and that's what they've had, or I'm sorry, in New York, and that's what we were planning to do should it become necessary.
Also, leading up to the pandemic, I was writing and continued to write a lot of songs about death.
I heard some of them, or one of them at least.
Yeah, I wrote a lot.
Well, let's talk about that.
About death.
Sure, no, about the project.
About the project.
Oh, that project. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you guys, you're the only humans outside of the circle of production to have heard it, but that's been wild. That was it is I started working on that prior to the pandemic because
let's hear what it's called so everybody knows.
Okay. Well, let me give it some context. It's called the George Project right now. It's the George Project. And it comes from, there is an Afro-Cuban painter named Emilio Cruz, who is now deceased, but he was mostly known as an abstract painter, was the first Black man to teach at the Art Institute of Chicago. Cool cat, cool motherfucker. He was a drummer and a boxer and, poet and painter. And then his wife, Pat Cruz, is one of the founders of the Harlem Stage in New York. And so this piece was a script that he had written, and, it's like a typed first draft script, in effect, that he had written in 1975, near the end of the Vietnam War. And it's a crazy, odd kind of, Artodian theater of cruelty inspired, also Marx Brothers duck soup inspired, thing that he was doing. And it came to me via our friend Travis Preston, my directing mentor and dean of the theater school and artistic director of CalArts Center for New Performance. And it was kind of just an odd piece that as I understand it, he just wasn't quite sure what to do with it and where it would fall. So we did a workshop up at CalArts, a live physical workshop with some actors and some alumni, and my husband, Michael Feldman, is composing and doing the sound design, and an amazing choreographer, Spencer the Burge. And we all just got together in a room for 2 weeks just to, see what would happen. It was kind of like my dating it, going, okay, well, here's what I would do. So we kind of did some sequences, staged some stuff, started kind of dismantling the piece and reassembling it in my way. And then and it was like compelling, so they were like, yes, okay, we got something here. And it was a love connection. And then we were going to continue to develop it and take it to New York and blah, blah, blah. And then the pandemic hit. And then I guess it was kind of once we were in the thick of it a bit, because pretty much in January of this year, we started, because Travis had asked, since they were in the pandemic and trying to figure out what could be done through Center for New Performance and CalArts and stuff. We thought, they were like, do you think you could do a compelling, what did he say? Compelling or effective? He said, did you think you can do an effective audio play of this? And I said, yes. So then we went into working with the actors, and it was just a technical crazy show, because it was, one of the actors was in Turkey, one of them was in India, one of them was in Texas. Literally, that's Sean working at Elon Musk's, spaceport or whatever it's called, Starbase, and then people in California. But everything was, so all of the rehearsals and the recording and capturing the audio of the actors was remote and self-record, and recording through all kinds of multiple devices, people recording on their phones, and those who had good home setups and mics, and just it was like making an audio movie, because we just had dailies and sorting and scenes and all this dialogue. And then we kind of went through a couple months, I guess, of rehearsing and recording and just getting kind of the thick of it. And then pretty much Mike and I went into our crazy editing mode, and then just doing tons of dialogue editing and layering, because it's a spatialized sound, 3D, completely immersive audio experience. And pretty much I took, it's a full length 2-act play, but then I took it and kind of rearranged it, and broke it into these 7 episodes, structured with a heavy nod to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and kind of through the experiential veil of a guided meditation, structured this piece to make it a piece of an audio journey. And we are almost done. Like, we're almost at the finish line for this incarnation. I think there still is the intent to continue to develop the piece into a live, stage version, or some hybrid between the audio and stage version. And I believe when we finish the mixes, the spatialized mixes, we'll be having some events, possibly in different physical locations or virtual locations where people will be able to experience the piece. But it was just mammoth. It was just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous undertaking. I mean, looking at it now, because it's just Mike and I doing, mostly Mike at this point, just doing wall to wall sound design, musical numbers, the effects and the spatialization and the crazy scoring and all this stuff. And it's and the piece in total is like 3 hours long, it's a lot. It's been a lot. So we're really excited about it. It's crazy that it's almost at least this iteration is nearing completion. And it's been a real pandemic doozy, but a lot of time, spending. I mean, the piece is about there's a lot of death, there's a lot of insanity. And even that, I mean, we started this before the pandemic, and it's about, an invisible enemy that's killing everybody, and, people losing their minds and turning against each other and stuff. So it's like, well, this certainly came into immediacy.
See, once again, you prophesize this.
Yeah, always. We prophesize. And when you live in the moment, you can always claim to be prophesizing everything.
So, I have to apologize because I haven't listened to all the episodes yet. And
it's all right.
And I what happened is for the past few weeks, I've worked for like 12 days straight.
Oh no.
Without a day off. And 5 of them were 12-hour days.
You should join a labor union.
I know. And I mean, besides, anyway, that happened. And then, so I sat down to listen to it this morning, and I got my breakfast, and I was sitting at the table, and I turned it on, and I had a piece of toast. And the first line is, "How do you feel?" And I was just about to bite it, and I just started sobbing.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Oh no.
I mean, I was like, and then she asked the question, like, what do you want? And I'm like, I want to be a comedian.
Oh, me too. Me too.
And I mean, I really had a moment. I was really sobbing. I don't know. It was almost like I felt like a being from another planet came down and started talking to me.
Yeah.
And I immediately, I mean, I had a piece of toast in my mouth and I was like sobbing.
That's amazing. I'm really interested with this piece because I think there are many, it is riddled with moments like that. And that even happened to me, and I know it backwards and forwards, and I know what's coming. And there are moments that hit me with such inexplicable poignancy where I'm just like, this is fucking me up. And I think part of it is the format, because it is so in your head, and the way that you're experiencing the sound is I mean, and you know from my past work, I mean, this is kind of like a revelation for me and a lot of the work that I've been doing, and especially since I started collaborating with my husband, because he is a, you know, sonic fucking genius, you know, of what he's able to do. And the things that we've been able to make with this piece really took me back to a lot of what I was trying to do when I was doing Or the Whale at Cal Arts, but was incapable of doing, both for technical reasons and otherwise. Because I think you remember, you know, when we used to sit in the room in the dark and do these like vocal, you know, like sonic art creations and stuff. But then once we went into the theater, it was gigantic and everything got swallowed. And unless every single person had a really high quality, you know, microphone, there's no way, with like ridiculous surround sound, there's no way you could have achieved what was in your mind. But that's, and Travis and I have had this conversation so many times, because like one of the challenges of my personal art and what I'm trying to do in the theater and with my writing is when I realize like what I am trying to dramatize is the experience of thinking and feeling. So I have so little interest in narrative, like what's happening. It's like, who gives a shit? It's like what I'm trying to capture is like what that feels like when you're talking to yourself in your own head, or all the things are happening, or you're remembering this thing that you know, just that landscape is, because for me that's where I live most of the time, is in this like weird, you know, headspace. And how you in just those experiences where you hear something, or how, you know, that sounds far away and then this is close and then this is here. And so getting to work in this format and getting to work, you know, with the opportunity much more cinematically than normally we get to work on the stage and in theater, where you're like, they're saying the line, but getting to, it was almost too much power because I loved it so much, of getting to take, you know, like 12 takes of an actor doing a piece and then surgically being like, I want that word, I want that word, I want that breath, I want that thing, you know, and just doing these highly composed performances that
sounds exhausting.
It was fucking insane. Like it's good. It's a good thing I have no sense of time, because the amount of time that we put into this piece is unimaginable. You know, it's like, how many hours are we talking about? Then I'm like, I want him to breathe here. I want an inhale here. I want an exhale here. And I mean, I just was fucking tweaking out. But I learned so much about what do I find interesting and exciting about a performance. Like, why do I want this word? Why do I want the intonation to go up here and then it needs to go here? And so I was just having this conversation with my husband today, because I was like, what it achieves for me, because we were listening to one of the episodes, and I was like, this is conversations that like Jeremy Zuckerman and I used to have at Cal Arts, because he was a composer I work with all the time on Or the Whale, is this vision that I have of, I think it's a Jean-Paul Sartre quote, which is like, the thing about music is that it's meaningful, but it has no meaning. And that we can hear a song and just become sad or elated, and you don't know why, because it's not tied to like a lyric, it's not tied to some concept, it's truly just a feeling. So I've always had this dream of language itself being able to become to transcend the like hardness of our preconceived meaning or the narrative of the stuff and become musical with that kind of poignancy where something is just shattering you, but you don't understand why. You're like, why am I uncomfortable right now? Why am I crying right now? Why am I doing this? Or that it's just so layered, or it's hitting these things. So those are some of the things that I'm really excited about in this piece, is that there's just moments where I'm like, yes, like that is what it feels like when you're fucking losing your shit. Like where it's like all the voices are going and you're just, and I'm really interested in, you know, how people are going to respond, because I do believe there's parts of it that will be so uncomfortable that a lot of people won't be able to take it. Like we'll just be like, nope. Like,
I had a strong reaction to it as well, and I'm feeling like I'm glad that Brian and I, neither of us followed directions, because neither of us, you know, like went in dark with the headphone and immersed ourselves in it. We both, you know, I was like, I can't sit still that long. Oh, okay, I'll listen to it while I'm doing my makeover. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not 100% focused on this, or I'd be freaking out right now. Like, this is upsetting in a wonderful way, but totally upsetting.
Yeah. I mean, there's parts that are just rude too, because there's a lot of like, you know, if you've ever gone down an ASMR wormhole, there's parts where it's like bodily noises or things that are just so tender and close. And there's also, I mean, also interestingly, like the intimacy in it, because there's parts where it's so, I mean, that was the other thing too, is it's so inappropriate. Like there's necrophilia, there's rape, there's domestic violence. I mean, there's murder there. It kind of goes to all these places where you're like, holy shit. But the intimacy was amazing, because you know, I got the actors, there's one Issa Boose and this guy Hakan, who's the those two have some scenes together that some of them we recorded independently, where I literally had them lay in bed, you know, by themselves, just cuddled up with their phone or their microphone and just do pillow talk with themselves. And then some of them, you know, they did together, but because they're doing it from the safety of their own spaces and a microphone, you could get them to go so far and so intimate and so tender or so sexual or so extreme, because there's none of the like intimacy coach on stage, like, oh, where am I going to put my hand and what are we doing? You know, it was just like all of that got released. So there was parts of it that were hysterical, because I'd be editing, and part of it sounds like I'm editing a porno, because it's just like sex sounds. You know?
There's definitely parts where I was like, this is sultry.
Yeah. And
now I'm uncomfortable. This is sultry. Oh, now it's not. Now it's all bad.
Yeah. And it really like phase shifts through these things. And then there's parts where it's like, you know, like Hakan is just fucking brilliant. And there's just parts where it's like, he's talking about something awful, but it's so sexy. You're just like, why am I like, where you're getting turned on at the wrong things, or you're laughing at the wrong things, or you're, you know, there's just a lot of that where and that's always part of it too, is I always used to say, like, I'm not really interested in, for me, and maybe it's just because I'm not good at it, I'm not really interested in theater or art that I say is like a riddle, where it's like it has a point and it has here's the thing and you get to the end and did you get it, because this is the reaction you're supposed to have to this, or you're supposed to be this or you're supposed to be that. Where for me it's like I'm always going in with just a huge question of like, I wonder how people are going to respond to this, and there is no right way to respond to it, and it really is more just like a social experiment of like, that's my fascination in interfacing with audiences. It's like, how is that for you? You know, it's like making love. Like, how was it? Tell me about it.
How was it for you, Rachel?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna watch. This is funny. I'm gonna ruin Brian Snyder's world right now.
You're gonna
Brian
ruin.
hates ASMR so much. Could you hear me? Could you hear me, Brian? Could you hear me?
All right. Well, can you explain to everybody who doesn't know what that is?
ASMR, I can't explain what it is because it's a mystery to me. It's just the most bizarre thing ever. But Brian hates it, and that makes me love it.
It's so amazing. It's
so on TikTok, we're big on TikTok, and we're trying to do lives. And I've noticed that all the lives are people doing that, like weird. I'm like, and they're getting paid a bunch of money to. I'm like, we should start doing that. And I was doing it during the live, and he just got so upset. Like, he's just, you need, please, dear, please stop.
It's like autonomous sensory meridian response, I believe. Autonomous sensory meridian response. And it's, we call it the tingles. It's like the sounds that you hear that make the, the hair on the back of your neck stand up, or the things that are like, and people do all kinds of, there's weird. I saw a girl has a whole video of a girl that just had, because they now make these like microphones that look like ears, so you can, and it was just a girl going back and forth licking like licking the ears.
Popsicles in just like a big row, and they're big like ice cream, but she's going
and that's just the shit that makes me be like, oh yeah, this is the downfall of the Western civilization. We're
what I thought.
Come around. This is Nero, like Rome is burning, and people are doing ASMR ear licking.
In my version, you're in a bubble. You're in a bubble. You're in a bubble.
Yeah, which I just see. I mean, when I see shit like that, I just think, wow, we as a people are so fucking lonely. Like, we are so craving, contact and intimacy and sensory anything, and we're so fucking lonely.
When people are like, do the fishbowl, can you scrape your nails on the can again? And like they're doing a request. It's almost like a fetish. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It's like, it makes me feel something. And then you're just like,
need the willies.
Dudes, do you know like the amount of things that can make you feel something? But I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but I just think about like, poor artists that spend fucking years of their life constructing like a symphony, and you're like, and then somebody's like tapping their fingers on a fucking Coke can, and they're like, yeah.
Well, that was kind of my joke, was like, these people making like hundreds of dollars every night. Like, we're writing these skits and trying to do these things. Why I could just be drinking 7-Up and we could be making 5 times.
No, I swear I was just having this conversation with my bass player, Joey Maramba, who's probably the greatest bass player in the universe. He tours with John Cale from the Velvet Underground, and he's just fucking amazing and an amazing artist. And
so he probably knows Dustin Curtis Boyer, who also plays with them as well.
Oh, does he? Oh, probably. Yeah. There's probably photos of them together. Yeah. He did, goes all over the place and does those crazy shows where he did one with all these like drones and stuff everywhere. It's like, it's a far out crew. It's a good gig, but that's what we were talking about, is like, I think everything just comes back to whatever the fuck you're doing, you better love it. Because if you're doing it for something, like, unless it's, like, obviously, because we live in a capitalist society, yes, we work for wages, yay. But in terms of art or your comedy or whatever else, it's just like there's no guarantee that if I go online and make 1,000 hours of content of me fucking tapping a can, that I'm gonna, get 1 million viewers or whatever. So I better either love fucking tapping cans, or just do the damn thing that I actually want to do.
Yeah, it's like such a crapshoot if it'll catch on or not. So it doesn't even matter.
Like it cannot matter. Like, and that's so much of, I think too, that's part of that time, and just really having the opportunity to be reflective during the pandemic has really brought up a lot of that stuff for me of like, what is it that I actually want to do, or what are the things that I'm not doing, or what are the things I'm afraid of doing, and all those things. So I'm really interested, Brian, in your comedy, because that was one of the ones that came up for me too. Is like, I was like, I think I want to do stand-up.
Oh, you guys are crazy. I can't imagine.
I can't either. I can't even get to that part yet, but I did take the step of like, I got a notebook and I write little things down. It's like, I think this is funny. I think this is funny. And then I tell Joey, our bass player, my jokes, because he actually took a stand-up class one time, and I was being like a shadow artist because he was taking a class, and then I would write jokes for him, and I'd be like, say this one. I'd be like, I got another joke for you.
Did any of them land?
Yeah, they did. But I mean, he did it, and he's like, I don't ever want to do that again, because I think he loves it, but he was like, that's not for me. But he's very, very supportive. I say, I want to do stand up where it's me doing stand up, but Joey just with me. And he just laughs. That's what he's the best. He's a really good laugher. And he thinks shit is funny.
If you have a good laugher, just someone that makes you laugh too. Yeah. You can't miss with that. Every stand-up comedian should have one of those. That's makes it far less brutal. You just have that one person that's such a great laugh that you wouldn't even notice if no one else did.
Yeah, to be like, I just need that person, to be laughing. But I think it is one of the more terrifying things I can think of. And I've done, I was a professional boxer. I did that, and then starting a band was a really terrifying thing I could think of. But that's one of the things I've really had to look at is one, I abandoned acting and performing because I was always like, I'm going to be an actor. And I moved to New York to be an actor. And then I was like, fuck that. And then I started writing and directing and kind of receded from the performing side. And then in all my life, I was like, loved comedy, loved making people laugh, love that. And that is just, one of the scariest things I can think of is having to like structure that moment in time and that kind of overt demand, like, I am here to make you laugh. But I have been taking I started one of my other pandemic things was that I started taking improv classes at the Groundlings, because they have online classes, which was perfect for me because I don't want to leave my house. People are like, that must be hard. I'm like, no, it's great. It is ideal. Because I believe sans pandemic physical real world, the chances of me ever setting foot in the Groundlings was 0. But because this online opportunity was enough to be like, okay, I could do that. Now I could actually conceivably see that I would do an in-person class there. But yeah, tomorrow is my last. I did the basic level, and then I did the intermediate level. Tomorrow is my last class of intermediate, and then if I pass, I get to do more.
What happens when you complete it?
Well, they have it's an interesting program, like the educate. But I'll tell you what was crazy is so I just on a whim, because years ago I did improv at IO West when it was here, and I loved it. I just went pretty much to learn what the hell do you do in between songs in a band, because I'm like, this is uncomfortable. So I was like, improv, that'll be good.
You tune everything. Yeah,
and I had an ex-boyfriend, and he was into it, so we went together. And then I always said, like, he got improv in the breakup, because I was like, I have a band, I have lots of friends, he can have IO West. So and then I just didn't do it for a very long time. But I always think about it, and I always miss it, because it's like a spiritual, humbling exercise for me. I think I fucking love improv as like just the purity of it. And there's all kinds of people who do it all kinds of wrong, and they're like, I want to be funny, or I just want to be myself. No, but I'm like, it's like a fucking church to me, of the principle of the thing, of the principle of like, yes, and supporting another person's reality, and 1,000% of your focus being on making the other person successful. And that is like the ideal container for me. When you are in there and that is what you're doing, it's fucking magic. I love it. And I'm not great at it. So that's the other thing I love about it, is it's very humbling to me, because it's like, and even people who are amazing at it have terrible moments, where it's like nobody is 100% all the time. It's like you will fail.
I do
And
like
think,
that. I like that aspect.
Yeah, where it's like you're gonna fucking fall on your ass. You're gonna bomb. It's like comedy, where it's like you are
fine.
going to bomb. You are going to survive, and the people who don't leave you when you're bombing, like your scene partners who are still there for you, even when you're like, I know we suck and we're going down together. Like those people you love, and the people who abandon you, you're like, you're dead to me. Like, that's
trauma bonding. Yes.
Or just, yes, it's like the principle of the thing. But anyway, the point was, decide I was going to apply for this class at the Groundlings, and you have to, and I auditioned in, because you could take the intro thing, but I was like, I took Iowa West, I'm going to at least try to just audition into the core curriculum. And then I get my letter back, and my letter saying like, you passed and welcome to the school and la la la, is signed by Elaine Rochelle from Cal Arts. Do you remember Elaine Rochelle?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck?
You know why I didn't register is because it's Alain.
Yeah, Alain Rochelle. I never know how to say Alain Rochelle.
Yeah.
He's the education director at the Groundlings, and I guess has been for several years now. So I was just like, what? And then I, emailed him to be like, dude, I just started, what the hell is going on? And so, yeah, so that was a trip to discover he was there. So the way that the program is structured, pretty much they have improv 3 levels, beginning, intermediate, advanced, and you kind of you get a few chances to progress. So, and if you don't progress, then they're like, why don't you take a break, go take some acting classes, go do something else, get some life experience, come back in a couple of years and we'll try again. But pretty much every level you have 3 years. No, sorry, every level you get like 3 tries to progress forward. I don't know if this is top secret information that I'm sharing. I just realized, but this is how their program works. So, it's like beginning, basic, intermediate, advanced, and then pretty much you would move on to, then they have a writing program. So a lot of Groundlings ultimately is gauged towards like sketch writing, and they have like a Sunday company, and then you could get in the main company, but those are kind of like, as I understand it, incredibly ambitious ideals, because it's kind of like a big funnel that comes down to just a few opportunities, so what we were told coming in is like the best attitude to have is like, get what you're going to get out of this. But if you're only coming in being like, I want to be on Saturday Night Live, then you'll probably be disappointed, because that is a very, very small amount of people. So, I mean, I'm just kind of enjoying, it's been a great, it's been a great tempering for my massive agoraphobia, which has developed over the pandemic tour. It's like, I don't ever want to leave my house again, ever. So it's been good for that. It's helping me
down forever.
Get outside of myself. And it's really cool because it's kind of really opened it up, where previously it was only the Groundlings, out there on Melrose, but in the online courses, people all over the world are taking these online courses, because people all over the world are like the Groundlings. So there's been people in London and Australia and the Midwest and Canada, and we kind of have it's a real mix of people who are taking the online classes. So I would imagine that might change their curriculum moving forward, because I would think as a business, you'd be like, we should keep doing this.
Yeah, it opens it up so much more.
People all over, they're really kind of surviving. And
so you're saying that you're going to be on Saturday Night Live?
Yes. No, I mean, though, I did, back to your crying moment, I did have a moment, like one of the things that spurred me to take the classes at least and be like, okay, this is something, is I literally a while ago was in my bathtub sobbing because I wasn't on Saturday Night Live. like was just crying. Like,
you mean like right before we started?
No, not immediately before. We weren't crying together tonight, but before I started taking the Groundlings classes, because I had this moment where I was like, I forgot, I was reading something, because of course I've been reading all of the like like Elizabeth Gilbert books and Big Magic and fucking, I don't know, all the things. I'm like a self-help junkie, so I love that shit. I'm like, tap me in, like wire me in, let's go. Soul searching. And I was reading something, because I mean, I did the fucking artist way and all the stuff. I love it all. I'm such a cheeseball. And
Brene Brown. Woo-hoo.
Brene Brown, that's what it was. I was reading fucking Brene Brown.
Of course you were.
Yes, that was the one. Because I had happened upon something, and then I got the book and I read it, and I hit this thing, and it was this moment that unlocked where it was like tied to that stuff of like the things that I abandoned, or the things that I wanted or I couldn't even, admit. And then I had this moment where I was so sad, because that was like when I was a kid. I mean, like so many kids, but when I was a kid, like that was my dream. Like I was like, oh, I want to be on Saturday Night Live. I want to do that. And then I just, and all of that is beautiful. Like where it's like, I was on this trajectory of like New York and theater and that was my dream. And then I just kind of like was like, fuck it, let's go this way. And part of that was, I got into a relationship and I did this, and there's a lot of reasons, like,
went into boxing.
Yeah. I mean, and that really came out of, for me, my understanding, like that came out of repressed performance desire. Like, because what happened to me, like there was a part of me, and that's the other thing that fucking fuck you, Brene Brown, just fucked me up. Because part of it was like I so could not comprehend the value of acting. Like I was looking, I'm like, how is this interesting? How is this deserving of an audience? How is this, I just like had so little respect for it at that time. And so when like the thing with boxing was, it was kind of just, and it's unfortunate, and a lot of therapy has revealed many things about this, and the how unfortunate this thought was, but it was cool and it's adventurous. It's like boxing was the thing that I truly felt was enough of a risk and enough of a like truly putting your ass on the line that it deserved attention. That I was like, this deserves an audience, because I am fucking like putting myself in a position where I could actually be physically hurt. I could be fucking knocked out on television. This has value. And for me in my journey, I kind of had to take it, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, all like to that extreme to be able to like slowly work myself back to the point where I can be like, what I write has value. What I'm going to write a song and that has value, or, because it is so weird. And I'm sure I talk about this all the time, but it's so weird, like being an artist in capitalism. To be like, I am making shit that has no value, no demand. Like, nobody cares, except when they do, and that it's so weird to be like, and the intention is not to be a monetary mainstream success. Like, because for a lot of people, that's what they think ultimately the goal of art should be, to be like, if only I did it good enough, then I would be Taylor Swift. And it's like, I don't want to be fucking Taylor Swift.
Well, that's not how it works at all.
I want to be Taylor Swift.
I mean, everybody wants to be Taylor Swift, on some level. But I guess walking it back was the things, and this is what I ran into with acting too, in Saturday Night Live and everything else, is like, am I willing to do the things that Taylor Swift does? No. Like, absolutely not. Yeah. And that And that was part of the thing is I was like, oh, I can sit there and be like, oh my God, it'd be so cool to be on Saturday Night Live. And it's like, cool. Do I want to work a job with those kind of hours? Probably not. Do I want to, never see my family ever? No. Do I want, but then walking it back in the tiny steps, like what's the tiny step? It's like, cool. Have I ever done stand-up? Am I actively doing any kind of performing? Am I learning improv? Have I ever taken a sketch class? No. So it was kind of like, oh, well, maybe I should try doing some of those things so that instead of like constantly looking at the finish line and just be like, well, what's that about? And that the beauty is, I mean, and that's the other thing too, I think artistically and otherwise, the beauty of process when you're in the process is, there are moments that are so fucking transcendent and connected and joyful that you're like, oh, that's what I think Saturday Night Live represents. Is like, that is actually the thing that I want, is this feeling, like what I want is to be so deeply, in the work and in my, deep play and having this moment of connection with another performer on the stage, that it's like we're just deluded by form. Like we think that winning an Oscar is means this feeling. I mean, for me, that's it. I mean, sure, there's people that are like, no, I seriously just want the fucking prestige. Like that's what I want. Or I want the resources that come with being that. But I think that's I mean, one of the things that's great is when you realize like everybody has their own shit. Like nobody's cakewalking. Like everybody is deep in their own shit. And
have you done stand-up before?
No.
So the first time I did it, I don't know if you knew this, but Matt Dittman, he was running basically a show at the Derby.
Oh, nice. I remember the Derby.
Yeah. And so like Gabriel Iglesias was there, Al Madrigal, Matt Bronger, Kyle Kinane. They were all there. And not that same evening, but when I did it, I was so jacked up because I had finished my master's degree at UCLA. I had done 12th Night. I played Sir Toby Belch.
Nice.
And then I did this little experimental thing. And I think I'm going to do some comedy. Matt was running the show. I'm just going to try it. And before I did it, my father, who was a professional comedian.
Oh, wow.
And he was friends with Lenny Bruce.
Holy shit.
Yeah. He worked at Ann's and 440 in San Francisco. They worked that same place. And so, he said, you're going to bomb, my father. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Dad.
And then he's like, no, you're going to bomb. And I'm like, all right, I get it, And so, I mean, I get, he was right, but he didn't tell me that's just part of the process and so on. You know what I mean? So
you didn't finish the statement, Dad.
Yeah, there was no like, but keep doing it. There wasn't, but keep doing it. So yeah. And so I even invited a girl that I was interested in and to the show, and that was a mistake.
Look at you now.
Yeah. Exactly.
You have a whole different life with you.
And now we're married.
Yeah.
And I knew about this. I listened to John's podcast before we even met, I believe. And I still, it was endearing. I liked it. I love that story.
It's a good story. I love Matt Dittman.
Have you talked to him recently?
I have not.
You should say hello.
I should. I saw him a while ago, but not under thrilling circumstances. I think the last time I saw him was at the Drago event.
Oh, okay.
So I have not seen him, but yeah, I need to, I don't drink beer and I don't eat chicken. So our paths don't cross too much.
Sounds like a song.
I know, right?
There's the
I'm
title
like,
of your next song. I don't drink
And I don't
beer and
eat
I don't
chicken.
eat chicken.
and I don't eat
So our
chickens.
paths don't
Don't
cross.
too much. But he's one of, but I have like, yeah, I do need to work on actually reaching out to people, because I have really strong like telepathic relationships with people where I just think about them all the time and I love them, and I, cyber stalk them, or no, I'm just like, God damn it, I love that person. And
And you're like, that's good.
they have no idea. Well, and it's funny, I had that experience. I remember a long time ago, I ran into Andrea LeBlanc from Cal Arts at a party, and that's what we're talking about, is the phenomenon of, she was like, because I know everything that's going on with you, it does not occur to me to reach out to you, because, and I mean, I think that's one of those like social media fucking, switcheroos that happen, because we're having the like simulated response of connection, like, oh yeah, and we're having these reactions, but the other person is just not privy to the fact that you're laughing or responsive, or, oh, your kid's cute, or whatever the fuck. Like, we're not doing it. And it's really isolating. So yeah, that was part of my like trying to send postcards, trying to make phone calls. We were having these like artist potlucks before the pandemic too, where I just started doing like a weekly, throw the net wide, invite all kinds of fucking people from all the different aspects of my life, and whoever shows up. And it was just like the closest thing to like a salon, of like just really interesting cross-pollination and conversations and people. Cause I think I mean, that's one of the things when you're outside of like the school or institution, you're like, wow, we really lack structures for this kind of community that aren't predicated on monetary exchange, like that aren't buy your way in or come to my, empowerment fucking seminar or do this. That's one of the jokes I'm working on for my comedy, is just about the surreal experience of getting older and that all of my fucking friends are becoming coaches.
Right.
Like everybody I know is now like a life coach or a breath coach or a dream coach or this coach or that coach. And I'm like, we used to just be friends, but now I have to pay you to fucking teach me how to do autonomic functions. That's fucked up. Like, I thought I had breathing.
I'm actually becoming a life coach. I was going to tell you, it's part of my.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm also like, I'm blessed. I take advantage of it. Like, I'm coaching with a friend of mine right now, and it's like, again, I think. You're
coaching? Somebody's coaching you? Somebody's
coaching me. Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing.
You're uncoachable.
Well, it's very limited. It's a yeah, kind of, but it was, I mean, she played to my ego by telling me she literally designed her course with me in mind as coaching my particular type of, multidisciplinary artist person. And it's
That's
weird.
Very specific demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's yeah.
and it's an amazing group of people of like, holy shit, like where and I have all kinds of judgment and feelings about it, that I'm paying to have, this experience, and how privileged and fucking elitist is that I get to like sit in my little bubble of like love and, people supporting your work and, helping you to challenge yourself and grow and develop. And I think that's the part that just my husband and I were talking about that today. Like, those are the things that piss me off, because this is the things I was like, I just want like universal basic income, fucking healthcare, like people. I just want a world where the basics are covered so people can just do the shit that they want. Like, and what would happen to civilization if we had the time and the energy and the ability to not have it be exceptionalism, when you're like, but I have the will and the stuff and I'm going to make my work happen, where I'm like, I would be so fucking interested to see what anybody's art would be if they just could chill.
We're seeing that a little bit right now, I think, with people, the whole job thing is people are like, oh, I don't have to do that. I just stayed home for 6 months and now I can do this other thing that I taught myself how to do on YouTube while I was at home. And then, people are saying, well, there's no one's taking these jobs because no one wants to work. That's not why. They found better shit to do, is what they did. They had enough time to sit there and think about it and do something else.
Yeah, it's because we have been like in a fucking riptide of thinking we had no choices. And then suddenly you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna make candles on Etsy. Like, shit. This is what I'm doing. And
Rachel did that.
Yeah, candles.
No. I was busy. All pandemic, I was very busy.
I was considering it. I mean, all of it. I'm into all of it. I was like,
I didn't say I wasn't considering it. I just said I didn't.
Yeah.
I was going to the postcard business because I was getting real. My postcards got elaborate. They got very, very.
Oh, nice.
I mean, not the writing part, but the art part, because I was already what is that, bullet journaling? So I bought like hundreds of dollars worth of stickers and bullshit like that.
Yes.
It's super abstract, like pop-up kind of postcards, and they brought a lot of joy, I will say, to people. Like people.
Yeah.
And they were fun to make. And then, like I said, I didn't write anything on them that made any sense most of the time. I, put the ingredients of the cereal I was eating or whatever. And, it wasn't even about that. It was just about making them and then sending them out. And I got several back. I got some back. Were cool. And, but I know I made many days doing it, and it was so minimal effort. I mean, we never write letters anymore, and we're always so lazy about the texting, and it was easy. It wasn't hard. And
no,
it's just like we make it really hard, and it's not.
We do. I mean, we love to overcomplicate things. And like that stuff I've had to look at in myself too, is like the uncanny ability to not do the things that will nourish you, make you feel good. To be like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do this other shit that's gonna make me feel horrible about myself.
I'd love to do that, but I'm just not. Yeah, I'm not gonna
yeah, I would be.
So when are you gonna do comedy?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of set up this thing for myself. So I did. I got my little notebook, and I'm just writing stuff down, and then my whole I don't have like a sense of urgency around it. My whole idea is I'm going to fill up this notebook, and then I see these like structures and themes and stuff where I'm like, oh, okay. Because I think part of it is it's an act of self-discovery, of course, where you're like, which is funny because it's also what the Groundlings are really focused on when you're creating these characters, is they're very character based, and a lot of it is really discovering like, well, what do you think is funny, and it's interesting to go down that road of listening to my brain and not being like coming at it from that, of not just like what's going to make people laugh, but just like, what do I think is funny, and how am I reflecting on this, and stuff like that. And I don't know. Yeah, I at some point it's probably going to be that somebody's going to be like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'll be like, yeah. Because that seems to be.
And then you have this book already. It's already.
Yeah, like that's how it happens. Is it's kind of like, I'm a big believer in that, and that's of like, you put it out there in the universe, people know that you're working on it, and somebody's going to be like, hey, can you want to try this thing, or here's this opportunity or whatever. I mean, we were just discussing earlier building a stage in our yard, because I really want to start hosting house concerts and doing the potlucks once it's safe to do that again. Because I really don't like to leave my house. Like, I'm just gonna turn this into a venue, because that's what I want to happen, because I want to see people and I want to do it, but I don't want to go anywhere.
Gonna play shows. I don't have to put pants on because I'm at home.
Yeah, I mean, I love, but also having played house concerts, it's kind of just like, oh, it's such a great experience. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm just putting it together, and I don't know what form it's gonna take, but I have, one of my.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's all right. There was nothing.
What were you? Are you saying that as being facetious, or?
No, it truly was. Well,
Okay.
it was.
You have done so little interrupting this one. It's awesome.
Well, it's because I'm so high, I'm afraid to talk.
I know. I'm sorry about the ASMR. I didn't mean to make it worse.
It's all right. So who are some of your influences
for comedy?
Mm-hmm.
Oof, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's funny because I don't know. not that I'm anything like that, but I mean, I'm a huge lover of Mitch Hedberg.
I was just gonna say you're gonna be the female Mitch Hedberg.
I
He was
fucking
amazing.
love him. It makes me so sad that he's not with us. But yeah, I mean that like there's part of me that that is absolutely my sense of humor, just like the banal observations or whatever I love. It was really funny because when I was a kid, I thought fucking Dennis Miller was so funny. Like as I watched him as a child, and it was one of those things where he made me feel smart, and I thought he was funny, and I just remember really enjoying that. I mean, of course, you know, I just watched, you know, I watched like the Hannah Gadsby fucking pieces and Nanette, and I just watched Douglas, and like the end of Douglas when she does a masterful takedown of Renaissance art that's like as comedy is like that just brought me so much joy. I couldn't even stand it. So I think, I mean, I feel like I exist in a space between like, I love super smart esoteric stuff, and I love fucking dumbass stoner humor. So it's like somewhere on that spectrum is where I live. But probably, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't, but it's funny though, too, because I realize like I don't spend a ton of time like listening to stand up. Like I have friends that like our one of our fiddle players, Danny Graziani, like he loves stand up, and he like when we would go on tour, he would be the DJ for you know, playing us people and playing tapes. But my go-to, like probably the thing I've listened to most of my life is like Mitch Hedberg.
Right. That was my first thought. I wish I would have said it before you did.
Yeah, and I mean, because it is odd too, because like anything like I don't know if we've ever had this conversation, but like as a theater person, like I generally despise one person shows. So I think in stand-up quintessentially is like a one person show. So it's it's an odd form for how, I mean, luckily it's such a clear container where it's like you get a tight 5 and you come up here and you make us laugh, you know. There's not a lot of stuff like I mean, I'm older, I guess. So I mean, I remember when I was growing up, you know, there was a bunch of weirdos like Emo Phillips and Judy Tenuta, where it was more like that was an era of people being like a character.
Gallagher,
fucking Gallagher, you know.
I love Judy Tenuta so much.
Judy Tenuta, like that was one, and those are some, and it's interesting too, because those are some of like the iterations that my mind will go through. Like maybe I'll just be a character. Like that's like a protective device to be like, can I just do comedy but under a pseudonym in character to be like,
get her done.
Yeah. I would just want to be so it's odd because I realize like there are things like those are some of the things that scare me, is realizing like, oh, like it's so intimate and it's so self-revelatory, you know. It's like I used to have this joke because I used to work at, you know, this BDSM sex toy company, and we used to joke about, you know, like everybody wants to be a bottom. Like no, like being the dominant, being the top is actually the most vulnerable because it reveals so fucking much about you when you're like, you're in charge, like you're saying this. And I remember it reminds me too of one of the reasons why Travis really encouraged me to start writing my own, like letting me, you know, write and direct my own stuff. Cause it was like, when I engage with a play, it's like an act of violence, and you end up, I did a lot of deconstruction and a lot of stuff like that, and putting like, it was really clear to see what I didn't like, you know, because I was like, this is fucking bullshit. But then when you're gonna write your own play, it's like, why the fuck would you put something you don't like on stage if it's your, like, you then it forced me into a situation of having to create something that like well, this is what I do like. This is what I think is beautiful. And so I think that's part of it with comedies. It's like, well, this is what I think is funny. And I mean, I love Steve Martin. I'm going to say, I mean, Steve Martin.
Did you read Born Standing Up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the audiobook is him reading it. It's awesome.
Yeah. I love his, I think it was from that, because when I was just having this conversation with somebody, because obviously there's a lot going on with comedy and comedians right now. You know, people, a lot of chatter about stuff. And the thing that I loved about Steve Martin's approach, which I think is, and that was one of the things that started too, is I got fucking masterclass and I watched Steve Martin's like masterclass on masterclass, because I was like, here's a step I can take. And he was talking about like, one of the things in his comedy and the way that he structures it is that like the asshole is always him. Like the joke is always on him. He never is like making fun of others. Yeah, it's never you're the butt of my joke. It's like I am the butt of all of my jokes. And that like that's such a great technique, because I mean, and I think it's such a great guiding force even now, where people are having so much trouble about like, well, I don't know what I can say and what you can't say anything anymore. And it's like, you can always be the asshole in your own joke. Like you can always, like you can always be the fall guy. And yeah,
Sarah Silverman does that.
Yeah.
She's one of my top favorites because of that.
Yeah.
And my shtick is a little like hers, you know, and you know, we've been doing this TikTok thing and I've made myself the heel and I love it. I would so much prefer to be on that end of it.
Yeah. Cause you're just like, okay. Like, yes.
I'm a dick. This is easy. Then I can't really go wrong because I'm already a dick. So, I mean, I'm already picking up my blind husband. So there's not much more I can, you know, fuck that up with.
Yeah.
There's a line.
There's a lot of stuff like yeah, so it's interesting because I have a lot of my friends too are really into like the storytelling thing and all that stuff. And it's interesting because I have stories and things that have happened to me. I know, right? That are so fucking funny and outrageous and terrible. But one of the interesting things I have to navigate is one, trying to distinguish between, am I scared to share this on some level? But I will tell you, in 12-step lingo, there's this thing where it's like they say, except when to do so would injure them or others. You know, where it's like how there's certain things knowing like I can never share this outside of like my friend group because it impacts other people. You know, like I can't or like I think it's really interesting because I have a few things you know, not necessarily in comedy realm, but like things I've thought about, like, wow, I should really write an article about this super fucked up thing that happens to me because it happened to me because of the Me Too movement or blah, blah, blah. And this would be really explosive and blah, blah, blah. But then I'm just like, it's really weird to navigate. And I probably need like a whole other like therapy thing to get through it of like, why would I want to reveal that? You know, like, why am I protecting that person? Am I protecting myself? Am I protecting that person's children? Am I protecting, you know, this institution? Or is it just like, I don't want to turn my trauma into weird attention seeking and commerce? Like, it's such a fucking crazy thing to navigate that I'm still navigating. So I'm like, it's hard to, so that's when I'm like, I don't know what form that's going to take. But then there's certain, I mean, obviously I got tons of shit that doesn't have nothing to do with nothing that I think is comedic. But I also think that kind of we're in an interesting phase of comedy and storytelling and self-disclosure that really demands a lot of a person. It seems it's really like group therapy and processing and a lot of revelation and a lot of stuff. And I think it's incredibly powerful and interesting to see, but there's a part of me that's like, cause I don't know, this is a messy area. Cause it really ties into one, my disgust and displeasure with like the gig economy the entire fucking concept of like people becoming a brand, which is really unfortunate language, I'm gonna say, like, because people shouldn't want to be branded. And like the monetizing of everything, and the monetizing of our most personal selves and stories and stuff, and that is like, there's a hunger and a commerce for like trauma and secrets and what's your life story and all this stuff, that part of me is like, wow, this is really healthy maybe, and this is great that we're all kind of shedding shame and sharing these things. But then there's also a part that I'm like, I don't know that this is good. It's just like, I don't know if this is all good. And it makes me almost want to go back, like when I read Kierkegaard and go back in time where people wrote under pseudonyms, and it really is kind of like, makes me long for the days of like pseudonymity and putting out thought pieces and philosophy under, you know, under different names, so that the thought itself could stand on its own, and it wasn't so tied to like this demand to be a personal, you know, marketing machine and a brand, and kind of like leverage your entire existence for wanting, you know, an audience.
That's why my name was Max Massimo.
Yeah, you were like, I'm gonna be somebody else for this.
I've done a lot of work like that, a lot of that, you know, trauma, like a lot of the writing, a lot of my writing, it's either funny or it's terrible, is pretty much my two wheelhouses. And the article that I got paid the most for ever, like the best article, you know, the most successful one I ever did at least, was one of the most vulnerable things I've ever written about. And I kind of have a writing credo of like, if it's terrifying to think about writing it, then I have to, right?
Yeah.
But it was that same thing. Like then I'm got my dirty laundry all over the place, and hundreds of thousands of people are going to read it, and I'm using my real name because I want the byline really bad. Mm-hmm. and then it's like, how much is this worth, like financially versus my soul, you know, being bared. And I've found when I do that kind of piece, especially because I have the comedy stuff to balance it out, so I'm not just like, you know, trauma. I'm not one of those. Yeah, that's all I write about, but I'm funny because I have trauma. I mean, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
But I found that there is a lot of, you know, oh, you just want attention. Oh, you just, you know, feedback. But there's far more private messages of thank you so much for that, because I thought I was the only, you know, they feel someone else who'd been through it and would never talk about it to anybody, much less, you know, plaster all over a magazine. They needed that connection. They needed to hear someone else say that happened to them, or, you know, and feel like they're, and I made sure that those pieces always had a point. Like that particular piece was about trauma and MDMA treatment, using that as a trauma treatment for people with CPTSD. So the point was to advocate for the use of that drug in that therapy, you know, that therapeutic environment. But it had to have that point. Otherwise it did just feel like trauma porn, basically.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to do it that way. Like you have to write things in a certain way where you're not just feeding the desire for people to read horrible things. Like it has to be.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is it's like when that's a great kind of switch that gets turned, is when you know it's time. It's when it almost flips into advocacy, where you're like, oh, this is why, because it's not just some story about something that's not connected to anything else. It's like, this is going to help somebody, you know, protect somebody, give somebody an opportunity, you know, those things is where I go like, oh, okay, this makes sense.
Well, I found the best way to avoid that is just to not do details. Just don't talk about the gory details of the thing. Go around. No one needs to know that part of it. I had a speaker who, we were doing a suicide prevention thing, and she, you know, was a survivor, and she did this amazing talk where she didn't say what she did at all. It was a letter to her children apologizing for what she almost did to them. At no point did she talk about what she did exactly. And it was so much more powerful, I think, than if she had gone into the details and had talked about, you know, what it entailed. She didn't have to. It had so much more power that it was a letter to her children about how she was feeling. I don't even think she said exactly what it was about, but it was obvious, you know, and it was one of the most masterful
Yeah.
I ever had on my stage, and it was just beautifully done. But I think that's the key, is you just don't feed the porn aspect of it.
Yeah.
Get off on reading the bad stuff and just talk about, what you learned out of it, or how to avoid it, or whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of trauma, your show project, it was intense. That's an intense experience. I kind of want to do the like immersion, but I'm afraid it'll freak me out. I'll have an LA.
Yeah, it goes. I mean, it's a really interesting conversation that we're moving into, because that's part of the next phase is, now that we have this thing of how it's going to be experienced and what kind of environments, because one of the things that's really cool is there's a desire to have like group listening experiences, which would be super trippy.
Yeah.
to be able to do that with each other. I mean, I think we might do some art installation ones. There's a couple of galleries and stuff, and in creating, like, how do you create that? One of the ones I had a really nice experience. I had to go to an event for work. There's a conference, because of my job in the cannabis world. There was a conference called Meadowlands that happens up in the woods in Mendocino. And it was great. Like, for me, I'm like, that's how every cannabis conference should be. It's like in the woods, and we can talk about policy and we can talk about regulations in the woods. Let's do that. And it was very cool. And they had a silent disco, and it was just the coolest thing to be like out in the middle of the woods in giant redwoods, wearing headphones, with a little generator controlled DJ and lights shooting up in the trees, and having the ability to just dance in the middle of the woods and look at trees.
I wonder if you can rent out the Integratron in Joshua Tree.
That's come up too, like talking about doing the Integratron. I live in Highland Park, like Montecito Heights, right by Highland Park here, and there's a empty Buddhist monastery that I'm always have been in love with. That's on the corner of like Figueroa and Avenue 52, and I really want to do an installation in there. But like, that's like Integratron, or
if you did that at Integratron, I would hate that. I'd hate that.
I hate love.
I would
I
hate
love
that.
I did my husband and I once did a private sound bath at the Integratron. That was it was totally great. We just went because we'd heard of the Integratron. We went to go see it, and then we're talking to the guy, and he's like, "You want a sound bath?"
Well, you gotta go do it if you're gonna be there. You might as well.
Yeah, let's go.
I was so hungover on so many things when I did that, and it was an experience.
Could someone explain what the Integratron is to those that are listening and watching?
The Integratron is a acoustic dome structure that's out in the desert by Joshua Tree, out in Yucca Valley, and it's actually the location that it's placed. It's at this like magnetized location where it's I think there's underground, supposedly there's like a concurrence of 3 or 4 rivers or something underneath it, and it has all these mystical properties. But it's this great, Buckminster Fuller feeling, like, domed structure where you can stand on one side of it and somebody can whisper and you hear them perfectly from the other side. And then there's a hole, that goes down in the middle, and I got to sing into the hole, and it's just this incredible, acoustic space. And they do sound baths and yoga classes, and it's a real hippie retreat.
I remember you
lay
talking
down on
about
mats, and you're all kind of like heads to the center. And so if you whisper, the person farthest away from you can hear you. And then they do, the around the bowl.
The crystals in the bowl singing.
That'd be a great ASMR place, right?
Oh, it's
totally
ideal. It's just ideal. So yeah, we're gonna move into how to do it, but it is interesting because it's those, like, I want to do, because we had those conversations too, because the sonic universe is so much so much that even when we were talking about possibly incorporating some live elements with that, it was almost like that's too dense. Like, we gotta,
Brian, we should go do that. I should take you to the Integratron.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool. It would be something that you would definitely have an experience. I mean, it's hard to think of things that are going to be as enjoyable for him, or at least as interactive. sometimes.
That's why I was
It's
so
hard
excited.
to think of things that the blind man will enjoy.
Well, I mean, we like go on vacation, and so what do you think of when you go on vacation? Like some beautiful setting, right? Well, he could be in Detroit or Hawaii. It doesn't fucking matter, So
Mhm.
it does take
what
some creativity.
won't make him sad?
Shut up.
I'm gonna take you to every church, like haunted house crawl tunnel that exists in the city.
Ew.
You're like,
Ew.
put your hand in this bowl of grapes.
Oh God, that's like his worst nightmare. But I try to find places that it's going to be, not just it doesn't matter for him where we are because there's no
Most places I don't matter where I'm at.
Yeah, well, I was so excited. I thought of you so much while I was working on this because I was like, this is some lush ass ear theater right here.
Right.
For fucking, that's it, wall to wall, all the
Well,
things. I
you
mean,
know-
it's great as you get into it because it's really like that aspect. I mean, the spatialized sound is so wild, and being able to, I would be so interested in your experience when, with the full thing too, because as people, there's scenes and the characters walk around you, and there's the footsteps and the doors and the rain on the ceiling, so you get these, like, for me listening to it, my brain is kind of creating the space. Like I'm like, this is the room, and here I am, and here's the roof, and it really brought it back. And it's funny because I remember when I was at CalArts, I used to they used to have like late night AM radio dramas that would play when I'd be like coming home from rehearsal late at night from CalArts. And I mean, I was such a huge fan of, both old film noir and those kind of films, but then the old radio dramas and The Shadow. I mean, when I was at NYU, actually in undergrad, I did a staged version of an episode of The Shadow radio show with like Foley artists and stuff, where I just think that sound universe has always been something so important to me in terms of how I experience things and wanting, these great sonic environments. I love it.
So where can people find out about it?
Well, I'm sure CalArts Center for New Performance, they have a website, and when the stuff goes up, the CalArts CNP, as it's called, or Center for New Performance, it will be telegraphed through that. And then, I mean, my channels, I'm sure I'll promote it. I mean, I have a personal website at julicrockett.com. And then all my, social medias and stuff. I never thought to use a pseudonym ever.
What would it be?
Exhausting.
My pseudonym, I mean, I to totally rip one off, Kierkegaard had one of his was Victor Eremita, which was victorious hermit, and so I often thought that I would just be Victoria Eremita.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess when I was doing, I used to be really deep in like online forums and like really foul, crazy, dirty online forums. And
Really?
technically I did use, my handle was Julia Krista, is like my go-to handle for a lot of things. That's my handle on Fortnite. Anybody play Fortnite, you can find me, Julia Krista, on Fortnite.
Isn't
that the most popular game like ever?
Yeah,
Minecraft, yeah.
Probably. But yeah, I have a boy child, and part of being a cool mom is we play Fortnite.
Is that the website you were talking about?
What website?
You're saying like well, I don't remember exactly. What did she say?
The Dirty Forum, or which
Yeah.
one?
I don't
Oh,
think
no, that
Fortnite
was
is a dirty forum.
no, Fortnite isn't a dirty forum, though. All the women do have badonkadonks to die for in that game. They are wild proportioned ladies on those characters. But no, when I first started working at the stockroom, which was my like welcome to LA job, that I worked at for like 10 years on and off. I love that place.
Didn't we see each other at the AFN?
We did. We
Not
sat at the
AFN.
AVN Awards. That's where
Yeah.
we were like,
Oh, I meant
what?
I just said access and functional needs. I don't know where that came from, but anyway,
But yeah,
AVN, yeah.
AVN. Yes, that was where we
you were
were
wearing like a lab coat. I remember.
Yes. Well, we had just released a brand called Kink Lab. So we had lab coats and I made these like hypodermic needle, pens and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I that was just the coolest job ever, and just exposed me to so many amazing things and worlds and people and products and stuff. And I was like,
you were exposed to me being very overweight at that time.
Around that
unhealthy.
time, I was working on Jim Wynorski films. I was this close.
So there, but but that was part of it, was like moving to LA and being like, what's LA about? Because I come from New York, and New York was like theater, off Broadway, bookstores, whatever. And I'm like, what's LA about? And I was like, I need to
pornography.
I need to be in the adult industry. Like, I need to do this. But I was super shy, and I wasn't ready for like personal contact. So I found this like internet-based sex toy company that happened to specialize in BDSM and kink, and I was like, hell yeah, this is so dope. I mean, and that's like my job signature, is like, where can I work where I can be fully myself and I don't have to become another person to go to work? So I worked in the sex industry, doing the sex toys for years, and then other than I toured with a band for many years, and then I gotten recruited into cannabis, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. Where it's like, I can go talk to the governor's office with purple hair. Like, yes, this works for me. But I had a lot of fun. But there was a forum back in the day called the Style Project Forum, STILE, and it was like one of those places where they posted, like, it was kind of like early Reddit. I'm gonna say it was like where it was just like random shit, and there was like gore and hunting accidents and pornography and weird jokes, and it was just everything. And
when the internet was great.
When the internet was
pornography.
Yes, it was kind of like that, but but there was just this like just some of the smartest, funniest people like was in these forums. And I was at that time, I will say, I was like, I had just I had just stopped drinking and using drugs, and was a social mutant, and like cripplingly kind of like shy and weird, and working at this job and boxing. So it's like my whole life was just like, I'm boxing. And I think now I'm trying to actually, there's so many.
You sound like Gonzo.
I know, I was crazy. I was a crazy person. Anyway, so I got deeply into this forum, and it was like my social life was just like, I just fucking, and I would just be at work and on this thing all day and calling it marketing, because I'm like, I'd post a link every once in a while, and people would, thousands of people would go, and my boss was like, okay. But I considered it like training, because I was like being exposed to things and seeing things that I felt like I was too soft. So I was like, I would just make myself look at horrible things and be like, I need to toughen up. Like, I wanted to, like, I don't want to be shocked by anything. I want to be totally accepting of everything, and I want to be okay with this. And then I would just be like, oh, this is horrible. And it was such a weird experience, because there would be like something horrible would happen in the news, or there'd be like a tragedy, and then in a second somebody would like fucking turn it into a joke, and then I'd find myself laughing at like some horrible fucking thing. And it really just changed my sense of like, who am I? What's happening? But one of the things, this is one of my artistic tragedies that I really need to reconcile, because one of the things that I did is, in this forum, I truly made, people I considered friends, and these weirdos all over the country. And there was all these people who had never like left their hometown. you know, where they like this weird guy that lives in his, you know, parents' house in Colorado and this person in Kansas and whatever. And so they were having a real-time meetup of the forum in New York City. So I organized
The classic 90s internet stuff.
I rented a minivan, and I was in LA, and I rented a fucking minivan and coordinated a cross-country trip where I went, and one of the guys was from New Zealand, and he like flew into LA, and then him and I took off, and we just drove across country picking up these weirdos from all over the country, driving them to the meetup in New York, and then driving back and dropping them all off. And we videotaped the whole thing, and I can't fucking find the tapes.
And nobody used their real names back then, so you're right. Like, so you all had handles.
Yeah, we all knew each other as handles, but then we knew. And I'm still Facebook friends with a good dose of these people. We're still like, well, I mean, during that trip, I had my birthday in a fucking Waffle House somewhere in the middle of the country, it was so crazy, and I kind of came unraveled on the trip too, because it was intense. But that. On that trip was the first time I was exposed to Mitch Hedberg, and it literally like saved our lives, because we were all fucking weirdos and at each other's throat, and there's all this drama and whatever, and
and you're all calling each other by your like D&D names, basically.
Yeah,
like,
we're just going, and
super weird.
And then this dude Kevin Norno fucking popped in. The two things that got us through that trip were Tenacious D and fucking Mitch Hedberg, and that was like saved our lives. But I'm still like, I don't understand, because I had a friend who was a film editor, and I have this feeling, and I have this memory of like, she was like, oh, we got to do something with that. And I swore I thought I gave her the tapes, and then I never got them back. But she says I got them back, and then I don't know where they are, but I'm still like, my God, I have to find.
I bet there's some comedy in there.
Oh my God. So much. It was insane, but it was amazing. I mean, I met this guy, this German guy on the forum, and we like fucking fell in forum love, and it was the first time I ever left the country. I like flew to Germany to go meet the dude,
wow,
just to be like, do I like you? I don't know, I gotta smell you. And I got there and I was like, no, that's not. But we had a fun 3 weeks, and I mean, I still hear from him every once in a while. It's like
the smell didn't
no, it wasn't a pheromone connection. But that's one of my, I mean, then I like slept with him anyways, and we hung out for 3 weeks, but I was like, okay, bye. And then he was very lovesick and blah.
It's not good enough to sleep with, but you're not,
you're not
marrying scent.
I was there for 3 weeks, so what are you gonna do? She's like, well, what are you gonna do? I was like, let's have some fun. It'll be great. But it was cool. I mean, it was like, that's like what got me out of the country for the first time. Was like, okay, let's go. But yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
So
stories.
Brian, I want to know if you had any other reaction besides crying over your choice.
I think that's as far as he made it.
Did you listen to any more?
I mean, I got into it, and I was really taken by the composition of house sound. You know, I mean, it was very beautiful, the way that it was mixed, and it was, yeah, I was really taken by that. But I did get a little anxious after that. I was like, am I gonna have some kind of nervous breakdown or something like but yeah, I mean, it was intense, and I'm going to listen to it. And part of it was me going, I want to listen to it with headphones, because because I felt guilty for listening.
Oh, you didn't have headphones on? Oh yeah.
Oh God, I didn't. I was so glad I didn't do that. I was like, thank God I didn't listen to those instructions, because I can't handle this.
No, the headphones, I don't think like sensory deprivation is necessary in terms of, because I go back and forth of, you know, listening to it like just with my eyes closed and listening to it, but also just like a lot some of the cast when they were first listening to, you know, the early edits was like just sitting outside and looking at I mean, it's weird, like listening to it and doing something else. And then, I mean, Travis was hysterical because he was telling me like he was trying to do it like on his exercise bike, like on his like trying to exercise and listen. He's like, oh fuck, I gotta actually pay attention to this shit, you know. So he had to stop and listen. But I do think it's I mean, because of course, I think that's one of the things too, is obviously like when you're making work, truly you're making work for an audience of one, because it's like I am my target audience, you know, in terms of the work that I'm creating, and I can't really do anything other than that. Like I can't earnestly and honestly create work for anybody except myself. And so much of it is like, you know, what kind of experience do I want to have? And that those are like the pieces that I love when I see theater, is it's when you're just like, it's like being invited to a fucking orgy, you know, or just a feast where you're just like, oh, like I'm being given, it's just so lush and I'm being given so much, and everywhere I look, like there's something for me, or like hidden doors, or like little treasures, or there's something. I mean, I remember two of the big defining pieces. I don't know if we talked about this before, but like when I was in New York and I was an undergrad, you know, when I was like 18 years old, I got to see, you know, the beta version of the Blue Man Group off Broadway. That was just like so weird and so cool and so fun at that time, to be in like a weird little off-Broadway theater and have so much, you know, stimulus happen, and such a beautiful kind of orchestration. And then I saw Robert Wilson's The Black Rider with like Tom Waits and the German company.
Nice.
And
That's one of Rachel's favorites.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. And it just like shattered any, like it was like that. It was one of those moments of like the universe giving you permission just to be like, oh fuck, like there's no rules. Like there's no rule, like you can do it however you want. And that was such a you know, joyous opening for me. Was just like, oh my god, I can take the shit that's in my brain and put it on stage and enjoy it, you know. And that's and that thankfully, kind of like you were saying with your piece, Rachel, it's like I'm doing this for me, but then it's fucking amazing when you realize like everyone, like the people who are like, thank you for doing this.
Well, I spent the last 10 years immersed in death in every way. You know, like my work before I started doing hands-on stuff, it was very academic and historical and comedic and lectures and, you know, just, and then I fell into the mortuary job, and then I'm actually doing it. And so I spent the last 10 years forming my own ideas about death and about what it means and what we need to do as a culture to get less weird with it and all this stuff. And in that journey, and to keep myself from being too scared of it, especially after seeing all the things that I saw at the mortuary and experiencing all the human experiences that, you know, every single day was just this torrent of emotional stuff. And so one of the things that was really important to me was trying to figure out, like, what do I think happens afterwards, right? And so that first 5 minutes or so of the first episode was exactly what I've been telling myself and dying people now for a couple of years is not what's going to happen. So I've been convincing myself and trying to convince other people that are, you know, right there about to experience it. You know, it's not going to be scary. It's not going to be, you're just going to, this is natural. You're just going to go away, go where your brain needs you to go. And what you see, and the last thing you see is going to be the thing that you need to see the most. And you know, your people are going to come for you because that's what you need to see, to let go. And then you've got this like nightmare, like, who are you? What are you, you know? And you're in war and you're in this weird limbo place and this lady's being mean to you and you don't know where you're at. And then there's gunfire. And I was like, Jesus. And I had a very visceral reaction. I was like, no, this isn't what happens.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to put myself in the art of it, like take myself out of the reality of what I experience all the time with that, and go back into a literary or you know, artistic place with it without being like, just having a shift of consciousness that was upsetting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is interesting because I mean, a lot of that structurally came from, both Emilio was really into the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and that's a lot. I mean, what you're doing and what you're preparing people for is a kind of a lot in alignment with what, in some ways, is what those books are saying. Is like, if you're not ready, it will be fucking scary because you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
what is happening? But if you know, okay, so it's like somebody giving you. I mean, that's why I think those books are so fascinating. Where it's like somebody giving you really clear direction of like, okay, you're gonna go here, and then you're gonna get off at this exit, and then you're gonna see this, and you're gonna see this building, but don't go into that building. You're gonna actually, where you need to go is go to the next building. And I know this is gonna be really shiny and compelling, but don't look over there. What you want to do is keep going, to this other thing. And that those, I mean, in those stories, I mean, I think every biblical, religious, a lot of there there is a lot of like threat and punitive
Oh, sure.
thoughts about it, of like, okay, well, we're gonna weigh your heart, and if it's not as light as a feather, it's fucking gonna get eaten by a crazy alligator. That's just like,
I've seen Catholics get last rites more than one, and that's intense, man.
Yeah.
When people think that there's this really bad option,
yeah,
possibly maybe they didn't, follow they freak out. Like there's a lot of fear involved.
Yeah.
In that.
And I can tell you, being a parent, it's super weird. Because I mean, my kid has been asking me about death and what happens when you die since he could talk, like from the fucking gate. It's like, what happens when you die? What happens? And we have a great, I think it's a great structure, to how we address that stuff, where it always is preferenced by some people believe,
Exactly.
it's like some people believe in this and some people believe in that. And he kind of gets to sort through and go, well, I like this, but I don't like this. And I don't think about this. And I mean, and that's just like such an intense thing. Like we had a little while ago, and I mean, not to mention navigating a global fucking pandemic and everything going on.
That brings up a lot more questions from the kids.
Yeah,
for sure.
Through the eyes of a 9-year-old. And him, and he was having this thing the other night where he was literally, back to sobbing, literally sobbing at night in bed, because he did not. I mean, it was both. He did not both like the concept of reincarnation nor heaven, because he wasn't convinced that if we get reincarnated that he and I would still be together, and he's like, that's bullshit. And then if we were in heaven, like, from most examples, he thinks it sounds boring as shit. So he's like, I don't know. But it was that, even that like guarantee of togetherness was like really having an issue. And just watching, him just have like body shuddering sobs at the thought of loss at fucking 9. It's like, it's so hard, because I mean, that's one of our, parenting is such a scientific experiment. I'm just like, okay.
Their first loss is just so
yeah. I mean, we have a veritable fucking pet cemetery in our backyard. So I mean, we've been through the animal training wheels, and one of a very close friend of my husband's committed suicide a little while ago, in navigating that one. And we've also had I mean, our family ethos has been, one of my goals for my kid has always been like, to the best of my ability, we're not going to do shame. I could do that, and I'm not going to lie. Like, and so, we'll see how this goes, because he is like so informed about so many things that are so inappropriate in the eyes of many, and able to carry on these conversations about, everything from death to religion to bodily functions to, intimacy to whatever. Like, it's like, let's talk about it. Like, and in all of that exacerbated by a pandemic in which so many of our children just were raised by YouTube, was just like, and then suddenly we're like watching the same shows we watch and do that, where you're just like, well, fuck it. Like this, we're leaning in.
I think all kids are super curious about death. I mean, I know I was, and then we stifle that, and then it makes them weird about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm fighting lizards with snakes in empty hot tub, I'm like, yep. I lived on a farm, so there were animals died all the time, and my dad butchered chickens or whatever. So it wasn't weird to me until I was told it was weird,
Right.
Like it just seemed like everything else, like, you're reading fairy tales where people die in fairy tales, and it was just part of the whole fantasy world I was living in. But until somebody's like, that's weird. Why are you, it was when I was peeling the owl pellets, I got into the owl pellets. And I go in the barn and I'd find them and I'd line up all the little mouse skulls on the windows. They were cool. There's a little poop looking thing, and then you open up and there's bones that are clean.
You're
and
like, look
awesome.
at that.
Yeah, so I was like, that's fucking weird. I was like, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. But I think kids have a natural curiosity, and we should be honest, because it's real. It's not.
And that's my
We're all
wife.
gonna do it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that's like, yes.
That's one of my taglines. Yes, everybody's doing it.
Well, and it's just that part. I love a book that I love is Ernest Becker's Denial of Death, which is
that's a great one.
It's like no matter how much you lean into it and get honest about it, there is still a part of us that is fundamentally rigged to be like, nope.
No, it's scary. And it should. I mean, it should be,
because we would just lose it. Because it's like, yes, if you ever completely like could grasp that truth of like, you will end, like we would just these are the kind of things you start to see, like when everyone's like, what would you do if you were going to die tomorrow? If we really dealt with the fact that like, there is so much shit we wouldn't put up with. We would just be like, no, or just be total maniacs, but it's like, yeah, so there's a part of that denial that's going to be hardwired in, so we don't need to contribute to the weirdness.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to stay there. I mean, I had a moment like during my cancer scare, I got unafraid to die for a minute. And then I watched my father die of cancer, and then it came back full force, because I'm like, oh God, that was almost, I had obviously lost my father, was terrible, but also the projection of like, that almost got me just like that. And that's horrible. It was a horrible way. He had a very, it's not unpleasant death. And oh God, that could have been, that was what was waiting for me. And now it's right back here, remission. And I got re-scared of it, like maybe more than I ever was before. And then when I started working in the mortuary, I got less scared of it again. But then I developed a terrible fear of being buried. I didn't care before. But then when I was actually doing these two options, I was like, oh, fuck that. I don't want to do that at all. Yeah. And that had something to do with me getting knocked in the head by the casket. But shit. That was unpleasant. No, but just the idea of being like trapped and in a box and buried, I was like, oh God, no. And before I didn't give a shit.
That's what it's like being in your bathtub, isn't it? You're trapped in your bathtub.
Trapped in a box no, not at all.
I think that's why you're in there for so long, is you're exploring that.
Right, Snyder, there's no way.
I worry because I am so addicted to living that like the chances of me going gracefully with acceptance are so little. Like I am afraid, and it makes me scared because I think I'm gonna do stupid things. Like I'm gonna be one of those people that's gonna be like, download my brain. Like I want to keep going, or like. Because I've always said, like, if a vampire legit was like, you want to live forever? I'd be like, yes.
Well, I think that's why I'm so, why I'm so driven to do performance and video and stuff and write, is because I want to leave something. Like, it's just, I want me to still be here for as long as possible after I'm done.
Yeah. And I don't know, I was thinking, like, if that's part of that, the realization or the pandemic or just getting older, like that like command in my brain has just become stronger and stronger. It's like, make your fucking words, like do the shit. Like, okay, let's start now. Let's just do the bucket list right now. And then we'll deal with like, if it keeps going And luckily, I mean, in my family, we have a lot of longevity, or, you know, my grandparents lived well into their 90s. You're like, oh, okay. But but the world is a crazy fucking unpredictable ball of chaos hurling through space. So there's no guarantees, and that's, and that's a hard one for me to swallow. And it's a hard one to communicate to a 9-year-old, to be like, yeah, when they're like, are you going to die someday? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. My 6-year-old and I have been having that conversation. And because of where I worked, I got sick in last year, and it wasn't COVID, but we didn't know. I was exposed all the time. I mean, families would come in and I'd be like, I'm so sorry you weren't able to be with them, like you should have been. And they're like, oh no, they let us in. We were fine. We were able to go be with them. I'm like, oh, and here you are in the office. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. And then 4 days later they call and be like, oh, I can't come in to pick anything up. I have COVID. I'm like, oh, fantastic. I do too now, probably. Thanks. But I got sick. It wasn't COVID, but we didn't know. It took several days to get the test back. And my 6-year-old started tying his leg to my leg with a bathrobe belt. And I was just, I have to pee. He's like, I'll come with you. And he just glued to me. Because and then he stopped sleeping and he said, I'm going to watch you. I'm going to keep an eye on you while you sleep. And it really affected it. And then me going there every day and being the only one who's going anywhere in the house. And then, the stress that I was feeling, he was picking up on it pretty big time. And everyone else's stress about me going, because, everyone else was stressed that I was doing that and being exposed as often as I was. And it's hard to make people wear masks when they're crying, like it's hard to do things online. All the paperwork and stuff is very difficult to do with people who aren't really present anyway. They're exhausted and they're probably taking sedatives and they're out of it. And you're like, oh, here's 8 pages of legal paperwork for you to go over. It's really hard to do over the phone. And so you got to let them come in, and then they're blowing their nose, and there's the mask. They can't even do it because it's wet and gross in there. And there had to be some leniency a little bit. But God, the people that would just be like, oh no, we went in, we got to spend like several hours with them. We even got to hug them and kiss them. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic.
Terrifying. Thank you
for your closure.
Good for you. And your closure.
Like,
and
what
my
happens
potential
if my whole staff gets COVID, right? No one's coming for the pod. No one.
Yes. But I have a question, Brian. When are you doing comedy again?
I'm going to try it possibly at the beginning of November and December.
Oh, yeah. Where's that going to happen?
It's going to happen at a little pub in town. I hope so. I mean, I've written some stuff that I haven't first draft kind of things, but I haven't really gone over it yet. So I'm going to try it out and just see if I can get a tight 5, as they say.
The type 5.
But I could do 10, but I feel that's a little much because I haven't done it in a long time.
5. It's got to start with that 5.
I'd rather have a tight 5 than a loose 10.
Than a drippy 10. That's one of Joey's nice running jokes. I called him the other day to give him this whole run of like, okay, I thought of a joke. I was like, I got this whole series, and pretty much the through line is it goes from oh no, I forgot where it starts, but it goes from human dicks to animal dicks to alien dicks. So one of our running jokes now is I got a type 5 about dicks. So if anybody out there is putting together a comedy show, I'm pretty secure with my type 5 about dicks.
It sounds like my friend, comedian friend John Huck. He would say that. I could hear him saying, "I got a type 5 about dicks." It just happened to be a thematic run that I was like, "Hey, look at that!" But yeah, so I'll try it out. I mean, I've done it twice. The first time was horrible.
Yes,
it was more. Matt was nice about it. Matt Dittman. He was like, It was like a performance art piece.
That was something else.
Yeah. I love every other conversation where I have a whole bank of things to say after a performance that are neither compliments nor non-compliments, or some of my favorite, wow, that was something. I
have never seen anything like that.
Yeah. Or I like to say my one for actors, when I see a piece that I think is terrible, not to out myself, is I'm like, wow, you guys worked really hard on that.
You know what happened at CalArts? You probably did not know him, but he was one of my acting teachers, Lou Palter.
Oh, I know. I don't know him, but I know
Of
who
him.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to, it was like the class before me. It was their showcase at the end of it was at the end of the year. It was like, well, I mean, literal year, not the school year, but it was like in December. So it was like near break. And not that that's important, but I went up to into an actor and I said, that was really nice. And Lou heard me and he went, nice. What the hell is nice? What the fuck is that? Nice? It's not good. It's not bad. Nice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I really hadn't thought of it that way.
It's hard. I've also learned about myself. Like I'm a person that really has to process stuff before I know how I feel about it. So I'm really terrible with any like immediate reaction. So like immediately after the show, trying to say anything of value stuff where I'm like, I don't know, I gotta go sit with this for a minute and then I'll know.
When you said orgy earlier, I thought I think you said invited, and I'm like, I have not been invited to an orgy.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you one of my funny regrets is one time it might have been
at an orgy.
No, it might have been at AVN or one of those events, one of my first like sex toy events. Like Nina Hartley invited me like up to, the hotel room party, and I didn't go, and I was really sad about it.
Why? Why didn't you go just to see what was going on?
I had a boyfriend at the time, and my boyfriend was there, and he was like weird about it, where there was part of me that was like,
yeah, but you didn't have to do anything. They're not going to force you to go. Anything.
Yeah, but we were like social weirdos and stuff, and I don't think I was quite there yet. I wasn't ready, but I was more just like, oh my god.
How did you meet Nina Hartley?
She was just at the event, and it was I don't remember what we were doing, or I conflate a lot of the events because it was either I went to a whole like conference on like it was like an international pornography conference, which was really cool. But I don't think it was at that. I think where I saw her there, but then I think it was just at an event, and she like knew my company in the stockroom and modeled stuff for us and knew her that way. And then I mean, she's just fucking amazing. I love her. And then
she still performs, doesn't she?
Yeah. I mean,
she's got to be what, 70 something now?
Yeah, and that ass just don't drop. It's just still banging. but yeah, I mean, like her, I love like her, and on the more the performance side, like Annie Sprinkle, I think is just somebody who I always was like, what a fucking icon and interesting person. And I remember I think I don't know if we were at a thing. I like wrote to her one time and got like an autographed book from her because I thought
she had a thing on HBO, didn't she?
Yeah.
Or is it Showtime?
Yeah.
She one of those, but yeah, she had a show for a while.
But yeah, I think but no, I've never been invited to an orgy. I just wrote a song. I read a book. I read this incredible book that's called The Sexual Life of Catherine M. And she's like this French art curator who really liked group sex. And she wrote a memoir, and it's just fucking amazing. And so like wonderfully French and dispassionate as she's just talking about like all of these experiences she had. And I just wrote a song, a tribute to that book that was really good. And then but I did just get invited the other day. I just got invited to a friend of ours because they had reached out because they were like, we noticed in a lot of your songs there's these like themes of polyamory and stuff, and I was wondering if you actually do that. And I was like, and I kind of was like, I've been like a fly on the wall a lot because of my old job and stuff like that, but I've always been more of like a witness and a tourist and not really like taking the trip myself. but I was like, but I'm totally interested. And like, can I come to the party, please? And it was just, super nice and socializing and these wonderful friends of mine. But it was kind of like, I mean, it's always interesting when you realize your things where like it wouldn't have occurred to me in a million years based on my friendship with them and how they present on social media and all that stuff. Like, I was just like, I was so kind of surprised to be like, what? Like and that they have, where she has a steady boyfriend and he has a steady girlfriend and they have their thing and they have all this, and I'm like,
That's exhausting.
Right. I mean, that's I think I don't know if I've said this in the last one, but I had a really like clear as fucking day sitting on the toilet revelation years ago, where I was just like, I like the drama in my work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my capacity for it in my life is so minimal at this point, where I'm just like, oh God. Yeah. And that's like the kind of things like I'm fascinated by people who are able to navigate such things and with any modicum of success, because that seems more rare for me. I've seen people doing all kinds of things, but it just doesn't look I mean, but yeah, it just comes down, I don't have the bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
Like I can't, I mean, mostly because I'm so I'm just so into my own shit, I'm so into my writing and making and music and band and parenting, and I've been doing like stop motion animation. I'm doing a piece of that, like I've just am constantly like all my ideas.
Are you bringing back the California raisins?
Yes. but I'm moisturizing them and now they're grapes. But yeah, it's like I was thinking about that the other day. Like when I sit around and fantasize, it's mostly about art pieces. Like when I'm like, oh, what would I want? What's my fantasy? It's either home improvement where it's like so I want a deck. Like I want a hot tub.
We just built a deck together.
Yeah, like I mean, it's so banal on that level where I'm like, ooh, we should really put in like French doors. It's like it's all about like just can I build a library in the backyard? Can I do, can I make an office in a tree?
What I want to do is I want to lay a patio with you. I just want to lay that flagstone.
Oh,
but don't talk. Let me do it.
No, that was great. My husband and I were having that. We were just standing there being like, let's just build a stage right there, just a platform. It'd be so hot. And then everything else is just like, and all this like all the fucking art I want to make. Like I don't have time for drama and people and stuff. Oh.
It's hard when your things that you do are kind of solitary things too, right? Like
yeah,
it's like that's not something interactive that you have to have this time that you put aside. Because they're all encompassing. They're you get obsessed and you get pulled into it, and then you come up for air 3 days later and like, oh hi family.
Yeah, well, and that's why one, like you guys do your stuff, some of your stuff together with the TikToks and the this and I don't know the full breadth of your work, so maybe you do more things together than that. But that's like the collaborating with my husband. I mean, both, it has its challenges, as I'm sure you guys know that too.
We had a false starter too before we found a place to where we were supposed to be doing it.
Yeah,
but it's our quality time, like it's our thing.
Yes,
it has given us a lot more time together and a lot more connection.
Well, I had a really funny conversation with two of my friends, because that's the other thing too, is I realized, for better or for worse, most of my primary relationships and friendships are the people I make art with.
Yeah.
Like my longest term friendships. I mean, it's like it's just, that is I have seen, and I've had people I myself have seen that as like a fault, to be like, oh, but you don't have, friends. It's like, no, I have art friends and we make art babies. It's
But
like
to
what
do
we
what
do.
with? I mean, who has the time? What are you going to do with a friend they don't do stuff with?
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean,
That-
it's tough. I feel, where, I mean, I've never been that type of person. Like, I'm always like, cool, let's get together and do XYZ. And I've navigated like whether that's an intimacy problem or not. But for me, it's like, as you're saying, like making art with people is some of the most intimate shit for
I think
me
it's an
that I
artist
feel we
problem.
can do. Yeah. Just be like, let's do this. And so there's parts that are collaborative, and then there's parts that are isolating. And then it's like, yeah, I'm trying to be somebody's parent on top of all of that. And that's a lot.
They always have
Oh.
needs.
They got needs and wants and desires, and a lot of it. But luckily, I mean, our kid is fucking dope. So I mean, I'm having a real challenge, when people are like, you're their parent, you're not their friend. And I'm like,
That's bullshit. I have a 22-year-old, and I was his. I mean, he probably feels like he was raised by wolves to some extent, but he still says I'm his best friend, and he means it. I think,
Yeah.
he says it when he doesn't know I'm listening, so he must mean it. And I think it was a great way to parent.
Yeah. I was like, yeah,
He's
exactly.
fine. He's independent. He's doing great, and he wasn't he didn't go into the world like a new fresh little baby. He went, he'd already seen plenty and done plenty, and I was always
You
honest
didn't
with him.
turn into Ed Gein, is that?
He did not turn into Ed Gein. He did not.
Yeah.
Um,
Did that make it
He
awkward?
did not like it when I told him
I don't know Ed
Gein.
Gein. Who's Ed Gein? Do I know Ed
Oh,
Gein?
he's a serial killer that wore his
Oh,
mom.
there you go. I don't know that one.
He was what Buffalo Bill was based on, and I think Psycho too, right?
In Psycho as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a nipple built.
Wow. I just got to do a bit of voice acting for a friend of mine who does a podcast that I really love. She does like a theater. It's like a audio play podcast called A Garden of Terrible Blooms. And I love her work. Her name is Sharon Yablon. She's a writer who I adore. She's so weird and so great. And she does this, she's one of the organizers of this true crime theater night that happens. It used to happen at the 3 Clubs. I don't know. And I think it's about to start happening again, but she does a lot of stuff with true crime and stuff. Anyway, she one of the future episodes coming out soon is called Creepy Crawly, and I got to do a character based on what's her face? Was it Susan Atkins?
Oh, yeah.
One of the Manson girls. Yeah, I got to do a Susan Atkins inspired person, which is very fun. I enjoyed it very much.
Did you do any research, listen to any audio tapes or anything?
I did my whole like, I'm being an actor now, and I went and I listened to interviews with her, but a lot of the available interviews with her are later in life, because it's her at her whenever she was coming up for parole, so like after 10 years, after 17 years, after whatever. So you definitely, it was more her born again Christian, I'm please let me out of jail self, which was still weird as fuck. Like she's just like,
what? No, she was the one that had cancer, and they tried to get a compassionate parole for her, and it didn't.
Yeah,
work.
I think that. Yeah. Late. They
said
tried
no.
to do that, and she got married. She got married to Tex while they were both in. Yeah. But she's very like she's very whispery. She has one of those weird like strained whispery intense, always looks like she's gonna cry, but I mean, but so much of the stuff with her that's very creepy. But
Susan Prom was pretty creepy too, but yeah, no, Susan's actually, she was so gentle, and
she's very just, it's like that weird strained, like almost like she's gonna cry on the edge of tears, but then like so it was really interesting to not try to do an impersonation of her, but taking like, what the fuck is that about? Like, what is going on there? So we'll see how that comes out. But I was excited because I have been having those like little tentative, creeping back into performing myself, and was doing a bit of that before, because I was involved with the Padua Playwrights group and have done a lot of work through there, and did some pieces with we did this one piece, Jack Benny, that was like in residency at the Resident Bar downtown, and then we did it in the Hollywood Fringe, and that was with Jenny Greer and Sean Buchholz and Brian Tichnell, who are all Cal Arts people, and then of different
my
eras.
best to Brian
Tichnell.
Buckner or Buchholz. Yeah.
Oh, Sean Buchholz. Yeah.
Oh, Sean, I fucked that up. Boy,
It's all right.
Like
you just combined Brian Tichnell and Sean Buchholz to almost say Brian Buckley.
Right. Yeah, I know. I was like Brian Buckley.
but Sean Buchholz, I will. Yeah, he's a main feature in the George project. He's George. He's fucking George.
I thought that. Okay.
Yeah, and he does a lot of there's it's so great. He's so great.
I'm gonna learn that Death song, by the way, because it was amazing.
Yeah, there's a song.
Yeah,
Sean has a song in the second episode that will make you laugh your ass off.
I heard it, and I did.
Oh, you heard that?
Both songs. I went from like the first episode, I'm like, oh God, existential crisis about death. And then the song came out. This is good.
Yeah, and ideally, that's like, one of the, again, like I just my whole thing is like, I just want it to be like, okay, here's your ice cream. Now you get chocolate syrup. Now you get sprinkles. Now you get a cherry. Now you get whipped cream. Now
I'm gonna slap you in the face.
Yeah, we're all of it too, and that's the stuff for me too, because I'm like I like to be surprised. I like to have something happen that you don't know what's gonna happen. Like that's one of the things that irritates me. Like when I watch like TV shows and stuff, I'm that asshole that's like, that person's gonna die. This is going to happen. She's going to come back. They're going to break up. She's going to do that, and it's like, and that, because if I can see it coming, if it's telegraphed, then I'm irritated, because you're just like, God damn it.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Jennifer Lynch's Surveillance with Bill Paxton?
No.
I'm like that too. That was one of the
Bill
only
Paxton.
films that I ever I was like, oh, didn't see that coming at all. It's really good.
And that is just like, I love that experience. And I also think, and perhaps where, and this again is kind of like a personal preference or people, I also love not knowing what's going on, but having a deep sense that like somebody knows what's going on. Where it's like being in that like, what? Like that those parts are that's just one of my favorite things, is like that kind of like feeling that I enjoy, where it's like when you're on the roller coaster and you're like chuck, and you go up, and then the drop starts, and where your stomach goes, and you're just like, like where that kind of suspension is a moment that I really enjoy. And then it's interesting because doing work that's kind of so abstract and non-linear too is really looking for, and I think that's where comedy is huge for me, is it's such a great anchor of reassurance, where you're like, oh, okay, this isn't, I'm not being, because I never want to be, I'm not like a shock person where it should never become abuse to be like, oh God, like I'm gonna stick it to you. Like it's always, I feel like everything I'm creating is with so much love and so much humor and so much kind of desire and hunger for like the multiplicity of experience, that it's like, that's what I'm trying to, it's like I'm really trying to honor the whole self. It's all of it.
We just watched Little Shop of Horrors last night. We played for the child, and the death song very much has that kid, death and preachers smell.
Yeah.
And
the counterpoint. Yes. Yes.
And it just reminded me of mortuary, because mortuary is a funny place. People who work in that industry are funny motherfuckers, because they have to be. And my partner who does the lecture series with me as well, but also worked with me at the mortuary, one of my favorite quotes of his was, it's easy peasy, Lyme disease. Easy peasy, Lyme disease. And it had that kind of, it had that tone.
Yes. Well, I watched Little Shop of Horrors. I showed that to my child a while ago. That was one of his, first musical horror kind of experiences. And he identified the protagonist of that piece as the plant and was very disappointed in the ending of the fucking movie because he was like, fuck those people. I like the plant.
For some reason, the only part that affected him at all was when the dentist got shot, and he's like, "Oh God, I can't watch." I'm like, "What?"
Oh,
not even
he identified with the
that is
dentist.
that is a very violently shot scene, like in the movie one, where it's like the dismemberment in the axe removal of it, but
it wasn't even that part. It was the shooting part.
Shooting him.
The plant
Wow.
could eat whoever it wanted to. That wasn't a part, but the whole like shoot. And when he slid down the wall, he's like, "Oh, I can't watch. And this is a kid who plays mortuary with me, who like pretend to die. And then I'll like, oh, okay, I'm gonna come pick you up in the van, and I look, and okay, but
interesting.
You want to be cremated or? I mean, he's a weird kid. He's really comfortable with spooky stuff, but yeah, for some reason he had a weird reaction to that, but everything else was fine.
Wow.
Like, okay,
I just got to show my kids.
Like,
we just watched Rocky Horror for the first time, and that was.
Oh, I can't wait to show him.
I know.
I have already taught him I've already taught him to dance.
Nice. Yeah, that was really fun. And so, it's getting to the point now where it's like, you were trying not to push the envelope too much. That's not true. We don't give a shit. It's all bets are off. Like we watched The Boys together. We watched Squid Game. We watched, what else did we do? We just watched, we're watching Stranger Things. We're doing all the Stranger Things, but tis the season.
I think the only time I blew it with my older one was he wanted to watch The Ring.
Yeah, we haven't
really
watched that
young.
one.
Like 8, and I was like, no. He's like, I won't be scared. My ex-husband was a art director, and he did a bunch of special effects and a lot of horror stuff. So we had horror stuff around the house. He'd already seen how all that works. So I was like, yeah, okay, if you insist, but you're not gonna like it. You're gonna get scared. Oh dear God, weeks of nightmares.
Yeah,
and
we haven't done that.
Going like, why did you let him watch it? I'm like,
he said he wasn't gonna be scared.
There's a burnt corpse in the backyard. Like, I don't know why this was so scary, but it was because it was ghost thing and it wasn't gore. And he was so accustomed to that. And then, so it's this ghost thing. And he's like, I'm having nightmares from the movie. No. What are they about? A scary girl with hair in her face. That's
that is
weird.
The movie.
That would be the movie that you watched. Oh, no, it's probably not that.
There's a degree of, our kid has been sensitive to like, if it's too creepy. Like I remember the first time he heard the Psycho strings and he couldn't, like for like a year, he was like, I couldn't hear that. Just the musical cue itself was just like, no, and he didn't even know what it was associated with. It just comes up in so many meme things or references in cartoons or whatever. And he was like, something's very wrong with that.
There was Doctor Who episodes that scared my kid more than any sort of horror stuff. I mean,
what was that?
Doctor Who episodes.
Oh,
that he thought were scarier than any,
Wow, it is odd. I mean, you never know what it's gonna be.
Doctor Who's intense.
So, before we wrap this up,
yeah, man,
I want to ask some questions.
Okay.
Oh boy.
First of all, as a boxer, Julie, if you had to go face to face with Rachel, what is your assessment now that you've had this time with her?
Well, I don't know what her martial arts training is.
Martial arts training.
She has berserker rage.
Burning Man for about 7 years. That's pretty much my martial arts training. That's all.
I mean, if we were boxing, because that was one of the things.
A lot of bar fights.
Yeah, like one of the things I loved about boxing is I like the rules. I like the constraint and the envelope of it. So, I'm a incredibly conflict averse, like pacifist who's never been in a fight really outside of a boxing ring and doesn't even like to argue with people. So, it's interesting because people are always like, you think you could take me in a fight? And it's like, in a fight, meh. in a boxing ring, oh hell yeah. Like if you can only punch me from the waist up in the face, and we're not going to take it to like the floor and grappling and weird shit like that I find aesthetically displeasing, probably I stand a pretty good chance, because
You don't like the aesthetics of
no.
UFC?
Oh no, it's so gross. It's just so messy. Like, it's so messy. I don't like, I mean, one, just the visceral, like physical, like I never in my life want to find myself with my head like pinned between the thighs of a sweaty person, like not for fun, you know, like in a fight. Like that's just like, ugh. And I don't like how like gross and weird and fast and like, I guess, I mean, and I don't know if that's like if it's like the animalistic nature of it, or I just find it, it was funny because Travis and I used to have this thing all the time, because Travis was a wrestler.
You guys wrestled?
No, but he would always be like, but he always would suggest if we fought, he'd be like, I'd take you to the ground. And I was like, well, that would be gross, because I'm not into that. So like, I'm like, I don't want to be put in a headlock. I don't like any of that. I like keeping people at the comfortable distance of a good jab, and then just shattering their nose with, you know, a good right cross or whatever. So, I mean, I have been told, a while ago, I was taking like private boxing lessons just for fun again. And that was, I mean, and I have been told, like, I hit really, really hard. Like, so I do feel like if I got a good punch in, then that's usually, we're all right. But it also totally depends on how like your face is structured, your skull, and how good you are at taking a punch too. Because some people are like I can take a really good punch too. Like I've been hit by heavyweight dudes and with a haymaker in sparring, where like the entire gym went quiet because everybody thinks I'm gonna die. And I'm just like, fuck you, dude. Like, what the hell? So evidently I have like a really hard head or something, because you know, it never was. I also think I just have such an overblown sense of, it's where like morbid thinking and can benefit you, because like when I was going, I was like, oh, it's going to be the worst thing ever. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be out. And then I got hit and I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. Like where it never was as bad as I imagined it would be to get punched in the face.
But I think that in a ring, she would kick my ass, because I have street training, not, you know, I've been hit by full grown with a haymaker, but in a bar, not in a sparring.
Yeah. So I would say,
and just really recovered and just,
yeah, it depends on the context. If we were in a street fight, Rachel, 100%, because I'd be like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, the rules. I mean, I was raised to fight crazy. Like, you know, if someone, especially someone bigger than you, then you just act like a lunatic and you just wig out, and then they'll get so psychologically like shaken up. Then you get, you know, then you go and you grab their hair and you smack their face against your knee, and you know, like that's where I don't know if I told you. And I don't know mastectomy, so.
I don't know if I told you this story before, but like I'm working on it very much, my conflict averse part, but my conflict aversion goes so deep that one time in my old apartment, I was taking a shower and I got out, and I like to take showers in the dark for sensory deprivation. And I looked at the window and there was a peeping Tom in my window. And my immediate reaction was that I apologized to him.
Wow.
Was like, I was so uncomfortable that we were having this interaction, that what came out of my life was like, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
There's a comedy bit right there.
Exactly. I have like, I'm working on my conflict averse, you know, part, because I have a lot of like, there's a lot of ridiculous moments like that, like that was my go-to. It's like, I apologize. And it was hysterical because my best friend lived next door, and I literally apologized, walked into my living room, got like laid down on the floor, and like called my best friend, my neighbor next door, Lisa D, and was like, there's a peeping Tom in the back of the house. And then she's this like, you know, bougie ladylike opera singer or whatever, and I just hear her kicking open her back door, bam, and she's like, hey, asshole, get the fuck out of here. And it was just so, and we were just like, that's so bad. That the boxer is like, I'm just like, ah. It's like, I can't deal with this situation.
I got flashed in Vancouver, like the full on.
Oh boy.
And I just started laughing. Like I was like, I was so excited because it was so classic. Like I just didn't even think that was really a thing. And I was just pleased. I was just like,
you're like,
do it again. And I was like, do it again. And then he started to run away. And I was like, no, come back. That was awesome. Yeah, nobody was going for it, I don't think.
Yeah, I had, it was, I mean, nowadays I think it's more in the parlance, but we used to always hear about fight or flight. And then I learned that there's more, that it's like fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. And I was like, oh fuck, that's, you know, and those last two is like, that was my MO, is either something awkward happens and I leave my body, just like, goodbye. It's like, hey, I can't even. And I mean, and those are just some of, the things, like, I can't even, like, I was like, I can't even enumerate the amount of people I've had sex with in my life just because doing it was less uncomfortable for me than the conversation of saying no. Like, that I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna exit my body.
We'll 7 minutes.
We'll do this. This will be easier, you know? So it's like, I can't, because for us to actually have to dialogue on this is going to be unbearable for me. So,
and take longer than 7 minutes, probably.
Yes. And then I'm like, I don't want to do something that intimate with you as like, to actually engage about my feelings about this. So let's just go for it. And I have one horrible memory where literally, where you're just signaling in every way. I don't want, whatever. Okay, fine. And my solution is horrible. My solution was I just laid on my stomach on the bed and literally just waved over my shoulder and was like, just do your thing. Like,
let's do this. Wrap it up.
Go. Fine. Like, Jesus Christ.
So this leads me into my next question.
Great.
What is, since we're at Halloween, excuse me, when was there a moment where you were scared, super scared, but funny scared? Like something that scared the shit out of you, but was funny in the end?
I'm trying to think, like, scared me in a real way, but was funny.
Yeah, it wasn't like, but you were totally terrified, but it was a joke.
Well, I mean, when I was, I've had multiple moments where I thought I was going to die. And in like one time we were on a 8th grade school trip on a plane, and it did one of those like massive turbulence air pocket things where the plane just dropped, and for a good chunk of time, and like a plane full of my entire, 8th grade class thinking we were going to die. And and one of the things is, because of these multiple experiences, I'm pretty certain of what my final words are going to be if I ever type an accent, because every time the thing that came out of my mouth is, are you kidding me? That's I was like, evidently that's going to be my final thing. Be like, are you fucking kidding me? What? And I remember that being funny, because I was just like, I remember, because I was just totally hamming it up, because I thought I was gonna die, and then I was like singing, like I was like, oh, down she goes, and my teacher was like, calm down. I'm like, I'm totally calm, I'm great, this is it, we're going down. And there was that, and I had another one where I would like got caught in a riptide, like swimming, like I had multiple thinking I was gonna die in the ocean, and I love the ocean, and I love to swim, and I love big waves, and I always think I'm gonna die. But I can't think. I mean, but there's one. I mean, a lot of times when I was like truly it wasn't funny, and it didn't get funny for a while. I mean, I had some harrowing, because I've had some. I had what would be qualified as a bona fide drinking problem in the past, and which gave me good reason to not drink and do drugs anymore. And in some of those, crazy motherfucking things that I did, are absolutely hysterical to me now. And at the time we're just stupid. I mean, they're just so signature insanity. Like I once brought a rollerblading gigolo home from Venice, like a puppy, like because I smoked crack with him. Like my boyfriend and I were like went to our friend's house, and like this dude just rollerbladed by with no shirt on, and we like smoked crack together. And then I was like, where do you live? And he's like, I live on the beach. And I'm like, you don't have a house? I was like, you should come home with us. And it was very funny because we brought him home. I was living in downtown LA, and because I was such a newbie crack smoker at that time, I had only ever smoked crack at my friend's house in Venice Beach. So every time we thought we should smoke crack, we would drive to fucking Venice Beach to go buy crack. And then we brought this dude home. We brought home the gigolo, and he's like comes to our house for the first time, and then he starts getting, a little shifty after a little while. And he's like, I'll be right back. And he rollerblades out the door, and then he comes back with crack. And I was like, where did you get that? He's like,
Venice Beach.
Like on the fucking corner by your house. Like I was like, what? I did not know that you could get it so soon. That's amazing. And then my boss, my dear boss reminds me, because he tells me this story, because I remember because it was when our office was moving from one location to another location, and he told me one time, he's like, remember that time you brought a crackhead to work? I just was like, I inherited this dude. And so we were moving. So I was like, you should come to work with me and help us move our office. And to me, it seemed totally reasonable. But evidently to anybody who wasn't immediately in the situation, he was like, you brought a crackhead to work. And then like we took him down to Melrose, and he got a job. Never saw him again, except one time he checked in. He did find me. He added my number. And he called me like 3 weeks later. He's like, I just want you to know I'm okay. It's great. I'm living with the boss and blah. And I was like, awesome. But it seemed like a real Cinderella story. He just he just rollerbladed into a fucking clothing store on Melrose, came out with a phone number, and his life was all right. He did all right. So
thank you for taking us on that journey.
Yeah, I was infamous for that too, making friends with the worst person in the room, and then being like, come on, let's get the come to my, and then you got to get rid of them, and it's hard. You don't be rude.
The best part too about that I always forget is then I was at a reunion for NYU, talking to a friend of mine, my friend Matt Ritchie, who's like a theater director, and he was an actor I used to work with. And I have told this story for years about the crackhead on the beach and the Venice Beach and going and taking him to work and stuff. And then Matt told me the story back, because it turned out that same weekend, Matt had moved to Los Angeles from New York, and he was staying with me. So he was there through all of this. Like, he's like, yeah, I was in the car. You took me to fucking Venice Beach and you bought crack with me in your car. Like, this is my first moving to LA story. And the thing that is fucking insane about the human brain is I have completely erased him from my version of this weekend. He also came to work and helped us move the office.
But he wasn't smoking crack.
But he wasn't smoking crack. So he was dead to me. So he was
an integral part of the story
in the narrative. Like, that I was like, of course I took the one fucking sane person in this scenario and just photoshopped him out of my memory. Was like, no, he was not there. And that was like fucking surreal. Was him and I with our other friend Angie Suarez sitting there, and him telling me, he was telling them the story of him moving to LA, and I was just hearing this told to me. It blew my mind. It blew my mind that I was like, and I try to like, I can kind of it's like Memento or something. Like I can kind of reconstruct it and kind of put him there, but it's really an act of force. Like I'm like, I honestly cannot believe that I did that to him. Was like, welcome to LA, bitch. We're going.
And you are the central part of his story.
Yeah, it was like this was his welcome. I mean, and he loves that story too, that his story, because it's like, what a fucking welcome to LA story of like crackheads, juggalos.
Crackheads.
I think we went to I took him to the Tropicana, the like bikini strip joint. Like,
okay.
Evidently we were there at that part of that. I was like, again, I was like, totally remember that. Totally remember the really depressing afternoon at the Tropicana. Do not remember Matt being there.
Was that on Sunset?
It was like, yeah, it was like right off the freeway there, off the 101. It used to be up there. And oh my God, it was so funny. I just remember my boyfriend at the time just pounding beers, trying to get wasted. And I was like, you know, those are non-alcoholic beers. Right? And he's like, God damn it, I just spent like $50 on fucking NA beer. It was a scene. So it's funny because like there's a lot of that stuff where it's like I mean, before I you know, really comprehended that like, oh, I might, you know, this might be a problem. I truly just thought I was schizophrenic because I could not believe the shit that I would do and then be like pretty functional. Cause like through that too, like that's when I was like training as a boxer and competing in the amateurs and going to Cal Arts. I was like, what? I'm great. I'm in an elite program. I'm getting my master's. And this is what I'm doing on the weekends. Good times.
Crack's quite a drug.
It's a hell of a drug.
So Rachel, what's your moment of fear, but funny?
Oh, I don't know. The fear, but funny. God, I had one and then it just went out. The ADD took it and
all right.
I was thinking about crackheads and yeah, let me think about it for a minute. But yeah, go to the next question. I'll see if I can remember what I was thinking of.
So I think you mentioned this, Julie, but it sounds like your epitaph would be, "Are you kidding?"
Yes. Are you kidding me?
And then my final question is, if you could say one thing to everybody on earth at the same time, simultaneously as an omnipotent being, what would you say?
Jesus. That's not my answer. Just wanted you to know.
You're gonna plant that seed.
Wow, everybody at once all together.
And translate it into their own languages so they understand it.
Well, I will say that one of the most profound things that I've ever heard anybody say that has saved me from so many situations and I consider unbelievably wise and insightful was my friend Monty once shared the thought, maybe everything is actually okay. And hearing that in the face of all kinds of things has been like the sucker that like can pull me out of a tree sometimes. Because I think that there's a lot of fancy ways to say it, but I realize like suspending my judgment of a situation, being good, bad, right, wrong, yes, no, you know, trying to put it in its category is yeah, that's the one that for all of its simplicity has like, when I'm up Schitt's Creek like that, I can just hear Monty being like, maybe everything is actually okay.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe is my favorite fucking word in the world.
That's what Rachel says all the time. Every question I ask her, it's maybe.
I mean,
I just think it's such a opening of grace you know, and even that, because I mean, I fuck myself up. I fuck myself up when I think I know shit, you know, when I think I know, I know what's supposed to be happening, when I think I know that this is, you know, good, all of it, like it just fucks me up, where it just to have that like opening, like just a little bit of fucking air, like just a little bit of thing to go, maybe, you know, and it's like the beginning of something exciting. It's an opening for empathy and communication. It's a pathway to make a connection between two things.
It's never a no.
It's never a no. It's like,
Sometimes it's a no. I used to say maybe when it was really a no.
and I think that's we'll have to go with a true maybe. But I mean, I did some energy work with an amazing, I mean, this is something I've been experimenting with lately. Again, this has to do with my like disassociation and conflict averseness and whatever, is this energy worker. I think that's probably the closest thing I could call her. Maybe. This is she was saying, like, for me, the thing that I'm supposed to be experimenting with is if my answer isn't fuck yes, it's no. You know, like if it doesn't completely fucking juice you to be like, do you want to eat this? Yeah. If I'm like, then it's like no. But if I'm like, hell yeah, you know, so it's like trying to find that like, yes, this is what I want to do. Yes. And it's you know, but I mean, again, with the thing that's so depressing to me is like when you read fucking Karl Marx, or you read any piece of like spiritual literature, like the great statement, I always come back to like the golden rule, you know, treat others as you would like to be treated. Like we've been saying it for fucking ever. Like everybody knows that's the key to life. That's the key to life, is like, you are my other me, I am you. Treat you as I would treat me. You know, I guess in some of us that's problem, because if you're masochistic, you're like, I'm gonna treat you like shit.
I was gonna say, I gotta treat people a lot better than I treat me.
Which I do.
Treat others as they want to be treated.
Yeah.
You know, it's
that's a no. You just went,
yeah, I went, yeah, because you know that there's like fucking egomaniacal megalomaniac fucking psychopaths that are like, I want to be treated like this. I'm like, go fuck yourself. No. Like, I'm not gonna treat you like that. Shut up. But it's like, man, you know, it's tough because I think that's the beautiful complexity of like civilization and all that stuff, is it's like, you know, if I'm to believe what that book Sapiens or whatever, like we were never made to exist at this scale. You know, it's like we're meant to be tribal and small, and it's very hard because there's such a there's such a sense. It's kind of like when you were talking about your vision flickering, and it's like, is it about to happen? Like I have this profound sense that it's like, we're about to fucking wake up. Like we're about to do it. We're about to have a group spiritual awakening. We're about to fucking have universal, you know, collective consciousness, and be like the veil of fucking Maya is about to be lifted, and we're about to be like, holy shit, what are we doing? Let's fucking love each other, love our planet, have a good time, fucking chill out, you know, fucking stop it. Like, let's stop, you know, patriarchal hierarchy, fuck it. Like, let's just go into like collective networking, you know, mutual aid. Let's do it. We could any second. Like, that's the part of me. That's probably the most idealistic part of me, because I think, especially because of like, I've had experience, or you guys might, with like, you know, in recovery communities and stuff like that, where I have watched people from the most fucking fucked up, destitute, horrible situations of a moment wake the fuck up and change everything.
On rollerblades.
On fucking rollerblades. No, and just see like in anybody, and same thing with like death or anything. Like you just see that it's like, holy shit. You know, as much as like everybody, like politics, that it's also slow and progressive incremental change. It's like, yeah, and people fucking have awakenings, like it happens. And this, belief that we could just massively one day be like, nah. Like I said, there was a meteor shower one time long ago, and this was like, I can't remember if this was, anyway, it was like back in like, I think it was like in 2001, 2002 or something. There was a meteor shower, and I was driving up to Griffith Park, right, trying to get up there to go see this meteor shower, and it started, and there was so much traffic, and it was so slow, and you weren't going to make it up there. And then collectively, everybody just turned off their cars, got out of their cars, and laid down on the ground in the middle of the fucking road, like right in the Los Feliz, everywhere. Everybody just was like, fuck it, let's do this, and shut everything off, lay down and watch a meteor shower, and then like got up and did it. And I just remember thinking like, that's the coolest thing. That's the coolest thing, when there's just like collective, like, no, we don't, let's just fucking watch the stars for a minute. Let's just do that. Fuck traffic. Let's go. And of course, there was probably somebody at the end of that ridiculous, traffic jam, dying or having a baby in their car or something terrible. Who knows? But we're all like, we're just watching the stars, baby. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I think that's, I don't know. I could trip on that forever, where, the scarcity mentality that like, for me to experience joy, somebody's going to die. Who knows?
I think I'm going to call this episode Mystic Maybies and Meteor Showers. No, it was mischievous Maybies. You're kind of mischievous in your Maybies.
Yeah, I'm sneaky.
So Rachel, did you come up with your scary moment?
I came up with like 400 of them. I think when you say scary, that can be interpreted like anyway, right?
Like, when you're super scared, like you thought you were going to die, but it was funny.
Oh, I thought I was going to die. Okay. When I was working for Atlas, I went to New York, and we were taking on several amazing adventures. And one of the things that we ended up doing was this art installation where someone would come up and hand you a watch with a note, and then you had to meet them on a street corner and then follow them, and you didn't know where you were going. And so we did that. And then this stranger is taking us through Brooklyn. Oh no, I wasn't in Brooklyn. I don't remember where we ended up being, but we go down this alley, and then we're jumping over these, we're going into abandoned building. Basically, we're breaking into a abandoned, decrepit, falling apart skyscraper. And we were in a group of like 7 people, and I'm like, this is very dangerous. Like, I consider myself quite a daredevil, an adventurer, and we're on an adventure, and I'm like, I don't like this. This building is not safe. And we're going up the stairs, and the stairs are like, bending. I'm like, oh God, someone's going to get hurt. And then we get to the top of the building, and there's a ladder. They put a ladder up to one of the water towers and put a climbing harness on it, and go and climb up this ladder, this rickety horrible, up into the bottom of this water tower. And everyone is like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm like, this is a bad idea. What is the liability on this? And I feel like I know I'm being an asshole. I know I'm being like a little grandma, but it just didn't seem like a good idea. We go up into the bottom, and it opens up into this huge speakeasy. There is a jazz singer, there is a piano, there's a bar, there's whiskey flights set out in front of us. And it's amazing. It's mind-blowingly, it's an amazing experience. And everyone else is just, and I'm like, we should not be drinking. We have to climb back down that ladder. And then we have to scale and then go down several stories. There's asbestos in this building. I know there is. And this is coming on the same trip that I found a bag of drugs on the sidewalk and picked it up and did them. But the building was not cool. Like, that was dangerous. And I was so freaked out about, I wouldn't drink anything because I was so scared I was going to fall off or fall through the stairs. And then I yelled at my boss for like 2 hours afterwards. I'm like, I can't believe this was very irresponsible. He's like, wasn't that amazing? I'm like, no, it was not. It was terrible. How did they get the piano in there? What if it fell over? What are the legality of it? Like, what's the charge if we get caught doing this? And he's just like, this. Like, I've helped found the Obscura Society. Like, my whole job revolves around doing this type of stuff, but it was very risky. I didn't like it. I didn't know these people. What do I,
You just reminded me of my entire rationale for getting the vaccine, when it was like, oh, but is it rushed? Is it safe? What am I putting in my body? I was like, dude, I smoke crack.
Dude, I picked up off the ground in Brooklyn. Went, what's that? I don't know. Let's find out.
I've eaten Doritos, so
Yeah.
this is happening.
I have recalled implants from Pfizer in my chest right now because they give women a totally different cancer.
Wow.
That's no big deal.
Yeah, they're like, but it's just, this is limited. It's just you. It's
Oh,
fine.
you don't want to be a science experiment? Be a cancer patient for 5 seconds.
Oh,
Welcome to Lab Rat.
God.
And this episode was brought to you by Pfizer.
Pfizer.
My Pfizer and
Pfizer.
my weird bumpy implant.
Oh my gosh.
I love your bumpy implants.
I was
Thank
gonna say. I love your hot wife, Brian.
There you need.
Thank you. Well,
Uh,
this is our episode. Thank you so much, Juli Crockett, for being here and
Welcome.
sharing all that is alive with you, especially
your-
the crack.
how's your high doing now? You leveled out? You good?
I've leveled out.
Yeah.
Leveled out. I
There.
was a little worried for a while,
No.
but now I'm just leveled out. Even Steven, I feel like the dude.
Yeah.
So George, we can find George on juliecrockett.com
Yeah.
and
It'll be
then
there someday.
CalArts.
Okay, Center for New Performance. It is. Yes.
Is that related? That's related to CalArts.
Yeah, the Center for New Performance is the professional production wing of CalArts. So it's
Okay.
like CalArts Center for New Performance is like their kind of bridge to the professional world, so it's really cool because they produce work by people out in the universe, and then it incorporates alumni, graduated alumni with students and the whole mezcla, and they do some really freaking cool projects, and it's been a great honor to get to I've gotten to workshop a couple things through CNP at CalArts, and it's something that I love because the band has gotten to play. They've had the band come and play for a lot of the theater all school kickoffs, so it's just kept me in this like consistent relationship with the students coming out of there. And then the alumni, because it's like Sean Buckles has been in pretty much everything I've done since 2000, and then, which is wild to be like,
You mean Brian Buckholtz?
Brian Buckley Holtz. And then I pick up, like Issa, who's one of the leads in this George project. Like she's an alumni that was in a workshop that I did of a new play I'm developing about Simone Weil, years ago. And then like Jenny Greer and Brian Tichnell, I met them when I got to take a play of mine to Edinburgh as an alumni with CalArts, and met them there. So it's kind of this like peppered every year. And then this new group, Hakan and Vidushi and Danesh and this girl Grace are rounded out our cast, and they're all current students, and I think a couple of them maybe just graduated. So it's this great legacy of the that I just keep getting to cycle back and collect more CalArts actors, because I really I love them so much.
There's a lot to love.
There is a lot to love. I stan that place and the experience I got to have, and kind of the vision and the work that they're doing. I dig it.
Well, thank you, Juli Crockett. If anybody wants to see what's going on with Juli Crockett, go to juliecrockett.com, or if you want to learn about our music, Evangenitals.com. Correct?
That is it. That is us.
All right, here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I'm Brian Snyder. You're here with my co-wife.
Co-wife.
You're my co-wife.
Hey.
Rachel
So you
Snyder.
guys are swinging.
Sister wives.
I got some parties you can go to.
I'll bring the rollerblades.
Woohoo!
And I'll bring the crack.
Yeah.
Now, if you like the show, please rate, subscribe, and review. It will help. I felt like I was going to say rape. Please,
Shit, don't.
please rate, subscribe, and review, and share it on YouTube or Apple Podcast, or watch it on there, or listen to it. And if you want to see us being exhausting, Rachel and I, my co-wife, go to the Exhausting Snyders on TikTok.
It's
Julie, is there
exhausting.
anything else that you want to say?
I just need some context for this dead baby going on over here.
We've got Daisy on screen now, Brian.
Spooky baby.
Can you describe Daisy? Why
Everyone
don't
in the house hates this thing but me. This thing's amazing.
What is she holding? Because it looks like,
She's on
oh, it's a horse. Okay, cool. It looked like a fiery ball of bread pudding. And I didn't understand what was poking up there. But yeah, Daisy is a ghastly gray-faced baby with dark black eyes and black lips, wearing a red romper and black and white striped tights on a wooden hobby horse with beautiful blonde locks and some sort of barrette in her hair.
Well, and she is the mascot for my project, Posy-Filled Pockets, which is the thing I do now, Brian.
Oh,
Because
Jesus. We're going to end with resentment.
Because Posy-Filled
Where
Pockets,
it begins, so it shall end.
I can't stop her when she starts, but this is happening. This is how we're going to go out.
And now her eyes are glowing red. She's nodding her head. And I believe she's the one giving the universal message to all of mankind. And it is not a good one. Oh, crap. She's getting closer. She's getting closer.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy
Here's our
Halloween.
creepy ending.
She's like my little baby. She's terrible. I love her.